Warrior Lore. Chapter 35-39. After destroying Shun's prestige, Xiao Hua looked at Jiang Zhihe from the corner of his eyes. Jiang Zhihe turned pale with fright and unconsciously took a few steps back. But at the same time, he heard Xiao Hua say in a clear voice, "Jiang Zhihe, you betrayed your master for glory, which is disloyalty, and you didn't save him when he was in danger. Such a disloyal and ungrateful person actually dared to stay in front of the mine. Do you really not know that there is retribution in this bright universe?" The golden light that had just cut off Jiang Zhihe's right arm also flashed. Jiang Zhihe had no way to dodge, and his left arm was also cut off. When Xiao Hua waved his hand, the Teng Jiao shears, shining with golden light, fell into his hand. Jiang Zhihe's scream was even louder than Liao Shang's. He was injured one after another. His face was extremely pale. He hurriedly covered his wound with his hand to stop the blood from gushing out. "I'll give you an hour to pack up and leave Black Cloud Ridge quickly." Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and ordered, "Before you leave all your Chinkuan bags in the mine. You can't take even half a primordial stone. Otherwise, don't blame this old man for being ruthless." Yes. Liao Shang and Jiang Zhihe gritted their teeth and answered. They reached out to pick up the severed arm on the ground and hurriedly returned to the cave. The black bear spirit was also a little dumbfounded. He didn't expect Xiao Hua to be so protective. He cried and complained in front of Xiao Hua just to drive these people away. Who knew that Xiao Hua would cut off their arms without saying a word? At this moment, seeing Jiang Zhihe and Liao Shang return to the cave with a group of frightened soldier monks, he immediately called the Golden Eagle. The two demons walked in front of Xiao Hua and said respectfully, "Thank you, master." Get up." Xiao Hua said indifferently, "You are this old man's subordinates. This old man will definitely not let you suffer. But you can't use this old man's reputation to bully others." "Yes, master." The black bear spirit smiled and said, "This little one is very timid. How can I have the chance to bully others? If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, even if they are thousands of miles away, I will kill them," Xiao Hua said in a clear voice. Hearing this, everyone's spirits were lifted. It was unknown whether Jiang Zhihe and Lu Shan were afraid that Xiao Hua would really be ruthless, or the two of them were just probing Jiasa country. In just the time it took to eat a meal, the two of them led the monk soldiers and hundreds of mine soldiers out of the cave in a single file. Taoist Master Xiao. Jiang Zhihe didn't dare to say more. He walked to the front and said with a smile, "We didn't take any of the primordial stones in the primordial stone mine. However, this small Chinkuan bag belongs to us. I hope that Taoist Master can be magnanimous. This old man has already said that the Chinkuan bag and other items will all be left here." Xiao Hua indifferently said, "As for your Buddhist artifacts, this old man doesn't want them." Perfected one. Liao Shan bit his lip and suppressed his anger. He said in a low voice, "Don't go too far." What did you say?" Xiao Hua frowned. "This old man is old, so I can't hear you clearly. I'll have to trouble you to say it again." Perfected one. How could Liao Shan dare to say anything more? Although his face was livid, he still pleaded, "We're all ordinary monk soldiers and monks. The things we have on us are all for our future cultivation. They're also our personal belongings. Even if Perfected One wants to fall out with Jiasa country, you don't have to make things difficult for us soldiers and generals, right? So what if I make things difficult for you?" Xiao Hua said coldly, "You don't take this old man seriously. Why should this old man take you seriously?" However, Xiao Hua's tone changed as he said, "This old man won't force you into a dead end. How about this? Take away your own things. Leave whatever you need for mining in the small Chinkuan bag." Liao Shan still wanted to say something, but Xiao Hua waved his hand. "This old man has already done his best. Hurry up and leave. Don't make this old man change his mind again." "All right." Liao Shan thought for a moment, and then turned to look at the speechless Jiang Zhihe. He could only submit. He gave the order to take their most important things, and leave all the things they needed for mining in the small Chinkuan bags. They left with their tails between their legs. After Liao Shan and the others left, the hundreds of small Chinkuan bags in front of them looked spectacular. The black bear spirit jumped up and shouted, "Rich, Rich? Many thanks, old master, for helping this junior vent my anger. The Chongling princess bowed. When she saw Jiang Zhihe just now, she had been furious. She had almost leapt at him and bit off his flesh. No need to be so polite. Xiaohua helped the Chongling princess up and said, "Take your soldiers and go to the underground energy stone mines. I don't know how many of the energy stones that Jasa country and Copper Pillar country mined are left here. I'll give the ones that have been mined to you. The ones that have not been mined, this old man has use for them." Many thanks, old master, for your generous gift. The Chongling princess knew that it was not enough to rely on slogans and loyalty to revive her country. Gold and silver were even more necessary. The energy stone mines were what she needed the most right now. However, she was also somewhat disappointed in her heart. After all, Xiaohua did not bestow all of the origin stones to her. Black Bear, Golden Eagle. Xiaohua called out to the Black Bear spirit who was looking through the small Chinquin pouches one by one and instructed, "Find a suitable spirit and distribute these small Chinquin pouches. Let them start mining the cloud stones. Discuss with Xiao Jian how to distribute them." "Yes, old master." Xiao Jian hurriedly agreed. The Black Bear spirit said with a bitter expression, "Old master, this is tiring work." "Of course it is tiring, but there is a reward," Xiaohua said coolly. "Also, if you do not want to do it, this old man will have Qin Xiaoyao find someone." "Do not, old master, this one will discuss with old second." The Black Bear spirit hurriedly waved his hand, unwilling to put down the small Chinquin bags in his hand. "Do your own things. Xiaoyao, come with this old man." Xiaohua ordered and flew into the cave first. Qin Xiaoyao did not dare to delay and also followed him into the cave. The cave didn't look big from the outside. It was only about 2 zhong, but it was extremely spacious inside. Not only was the ground abnormally flat, but there were also stones similar to Minghua stones on the walls, which illuminated the entire cave. Xiaohua and Qin Xiaoyao flew in one after another. After flying along the passage for a while, they saw several forks. Xiaohua paused for a moment, swept out with his divine sense, and found a direction to fly in. Not long after, they saw a cave that was dozens of feet wide. Inside this cave, there were some neatly arranged source stones. These source stones were not a lot, accounting for about 30% of the cave. It was unknown whether they were newly mined or left behind by the Jiasa country. Qin Xiaoyao had been following behind Xiaohua, and when he saw the source stones, his eyes lit up. He said in a low voice, "Old master." This disciple boldly asks old master to bestow these source stones to this disciple. My Fortune Gate outer sect has several hundred disciples, and there are not many source stones for cultivation. This source stone mine is the solution to our current predicament. Haha, you don't need to think about this. This old man has already bestowed it to Chongling. This old man brought you here to discuss with you how big this source stone mine is, and what kind of regulations this old man should make. After all, source stones are gold in the eyes of the Jiasa country and the Copper Pillar country, but in the eyes of our Dao sect cultivators, it is different. Xiaohua said with a smile, "And this old man knows nothing about these things. I'm afraid of turning a good thing into a bad thing and polluting these treasures." Qin Xiaoyao said with a smile, "This disciple understands old master's meaning. Then this disciple will urge Black Bear and Xiaojian. When they can mine source the source stones, we will divide them. As for how to distribute the source stones, when this disciple was in Jiang country, the imperial preceptor already had a mature custom. Old master does not need to worry. This disciple will copy it for old master to look over." I'll have to trouble you with this." Xiaohua nodded. "As the head of my Fortune Gate outer sect disciples, you have a lot of work to do. Don't worry, you will get a lot in the future." "Yes, this disciple knows." Qin Xiaoyao nodded. "Old master only needs to cultivate. The stronger you are, the better. All the affairs in the sect will be taken care of by this disciple and the others." "Good, in that case, you don't need to follow this old man anymore. Turn back now and bring Jiang Ming, Qin Shengyi, Jiang Haodong, and the others over. Together with Xiao Jian, they will control this source stone mine." Hearing this, Xiaohua said with a smile, "This old man will go down first, and set up an impregnable formation for you. Let those shitty Jiasa country and the Copper Pillar country not even have the chance to open their mouths. This disciple obeys old master's orders. Qin Xiaoyao was overjoyed. He bowed and flew back. After Qin Xiaoyao flew away, Xiaohua scanned with his divine sense and knew that there was no one in the source stone mine. He couldn't help but laugh. Ha ha ha, this old man is rich. Ha ha ha. Then, he no longer had the bearing of a master. With a wave of his hand, he took the 2 source stones in his hand. His eyes lit up, and he turned into a greedy wind and flew down the tunnel. The source stone mine in the Black Cloud Ridge had obviously been operated for many years. The internal and external tunnels were everywhere, like a spider web. At the end of each tunnel, there would be source stones hidden between the mountain rocks. Xiaohua flew around randomly a few times, and his heart became more and more excited. This source stone mine was several times bigger than the source stone mine in the Spring Gold Mountain in the Dawnrain continent. Moreover, from the layout, it was divided into 3 parts. Each part was connected by an extremely long and narrow tunnel. It could be imagined that this place must have been filled with soldiers in the past. Damn it, of course I'm rich. After a while, the hot-blooded Xiaohua became somewhat depressed. But this is also a hot potato. The Copper Pillar country and the Jiasa country will definitely spread the news of this source stone mine to the hidden immortal continent. The other countries will also send experts to investigate. Humph, it seems like Zhang Jihe and the others are just pawns to test this Xiao. If this old man gives way to them, they will cover up this matter and even fight with this old man against the enemy. However, this is their wishful thinking. The Copper Pillar country has already retreated from this place, and there will not be any secrets left here. Also, the Copper Pillar country probably had the intention of covering up the news of this place when they chased after the Chongling princess. They definitely will not let this information go. -12. Chapter 3540. This way, I only have 2 paths left. Xiaohua stood in front of a primordial stone vein and looked at the sparkling and translucent primordial stones in front of him. He pondered while holding his chin. The first path is to take advantage of the fact that the various countries in the hidden immortal continent haven't received the news and completely mined this primordial stone vein. However, the 3 countries have already mined this primordial stone vein for a long time and still haven't been able to mine it completely. Admittedly, they are suppressing their speed, afraid that the primordial stones will become worthless if there are too many of them. However, this also shows that the amount of primordial stones in this vein is extremely large. With Black Wind Ridge's strength, they definitely won't be able to mine it all in a short time. The second path is to defend Black Cloud Ridge and use Black Cloud Ridge's strength to resist the various countries. However, Qin Xiaoyao, the Black Bear Spirit, and the others aren't strong enough. It seems that I still have to rescue that nascent soul cultivator called Li Xiang and have him lend me a hand here. Moreover, on this basis, the capital star formation that I thought of before will have to be expanded to protect this primordial stone vein. Right, how big is this primordial stone vein? My divine sense is already abnormally strong, but it won't be enough to see through a complete primordial stone vein. Xiaohua frowned and released Little Yellow, Little Black, and Little Silver. Daddy. Little Black wagged his tail and swayed in front of Xiaohua's head, looking like he had grown up a little. Little Silver was still sniffing up and down with his nose, looking very happy as he followed Little Yellow. Little Yellow, on the other hand, was a lot more steady. After Little Black finished shouting, he called out to his mother and then stood to the side without making a sound. Go and help Father see how big this place is. Xiaohua pointed at the primordial stones and ordered, Where is the end of this primordial stone? Yes, Father. Little Black nodded and turned around to fly. Little Yellow was a little lazy, like a grown-up child starting to rebel. After Little Black barked, Little Silver flew out from Little Yellow's tail and rushed to the front. After the 3 little ones flew away, Xiaohua looked around and shook his head. The grade of the primordial stones here is a little low. Let's go deeper and take a look. As he spoke, Xiaohua formed a seal with his hand. His entire body flickered with brilliance, and he directly entered the layer of soil beneath his feet. Xiao Hua went straight underground for the time it took to drink a cup of tea. Seeing that the source stones were becoming sparse and the quality was getting better, he finally revealed himself. He raised his hand and patted the top of his head, using his yuanying hand. Rumble. Wherever the big hand passed, a large amount of source stones was grabbed by the big hand and pulled out from the ground. But when he sent his mind into the space, trouble appeared. Because the source stones grabbed by the big hand were too heavy, Xiao Hua's mind couldn't send them all into the space at once. He had no choice but to use his yuanying hand to crush the source stones and put them into the space one by one. After being busy for a while, Xiao Hua saw that the small or vein had already disappeared, only revealing an empty cave. This is still a little slow. Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and waved his hand, taking out his sword pouch. Xiao Hua had collected hundreds of thousands of elemental devouring insects in the mysterious water palace. If he let the spirit-swallowing insects drive them to mine the source stones at the same time as him, wouldn't it be twice the result with half the effort? However, when Xiao Hua released the spirit-swallowing insects and opened the sword pouch, he was stunned again. The sword pouch was empty. Not even a single elemental devouring insect could be seen. The spirit-swallowing insects flew into the sword pouch, but they didn't find anything and flew out again. Damn it! What's going on? Xiao Hua scratched his head. He had clearly put them into the sword pouch that day. After putting away the spirit-swallowing insects, Xiao Hua frowned and thought for a moment. He understood something. The elemental devouring insects in the mysterious water palace had some abnormalities. After they were killed, their corpses disappeared. Moreover, the elemental devouring insects appeared from the stone walls of the mysterious water palace. If there was no accident, the elemental devouring insects should be produced by the formation of the mysterious water palace. As long as the formation was not removed, the elemental devouring insects would be endless. If he put away these elemental devouring insects, they would still exist in the mysterious water palace. However, once they left the mysterious water palace, millions of elemental devouring insects would immediately turn into pure water essence of heaven and earth and disappear. Forget it. It's like drawing water with a bamboo basket. Xiao Hua sighed and put away the sword pouch. I thought that with these elemental devouring insects, it would be an extremely terrifying method. However, my mind is a little weak. I didn't feel anything before, but now it's becoming more and more incompatible with my divine thoughts. If I can put something bigger into the space in the future. Oh, that's not right. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua was bewildered again. How heavy is this Zhao's wishful staff? How can this Xiao easily put it into the space? Xiao Hua had already considered the matter of using his mind to store things when he was in the qi refining stage, but he didn't have any clues, so he put it aside. Today, seeing that so many primordial stones couldn't be stored into the space at once, Xiao Hua naturally had to think about it again. The wishful staff was refined by this Xiao. It can be considered a magic tool. Maybe it's different from these primordial stones? And although these primordial stones have no weight, they have a size. Maybe my mind can't completely control them? Xiao Hua once again made a hand seal to escape to the side while thinking, but this Zhao's mind has been tempered by the sun-concealing art. It's not just a little bit stronger than before. If I confuse my mind and divine thoughts together, wouldn't it be just right? Right. Didn't Doshan Jun give this Xiao a method to control divine thoughts? Xiao Hua thought of this matter again. He is a senior of the Dao sect. Maybe the secret technique inside has some use. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua took out the ink cloud pupil and put it on his forehead. Looking at it, Xiao Hua immediately stopped between the layers of soil. He was a little dumbfounded. Grandma, is this really a secret technique to control divine thoughts? Yes, Xiao Hua couldn't help but be surprised. The ink cloud pupil recorded more things than jade slips and jade eyes. The ink cloud pupil in Xiao Hua's hand was densely recorded. Not only were there various methods to control divine thoughts, but there were also various secret techniques to strengthen divine thoughts. The so-called Yuanying's hand was just the simplest among them. As for the rest, Xiao Hua couldn't read it all at once. I'm rich. Xiao Hua took a deep breath and was about to enter the space to give the ink cloud pupil to the green-robed Xiao Hua. But just as his mind moved, he remembered that the green-robed Xiao Hua was controlling the Yuanying in his lower dantian to receive the baptism of the 5 Qi Thunder. How could he have time to comprehend the secret technique? Xiao Hua had no choice but to check it himself. After looking at the cultivation method for a cup of tea, he found the content he was interested in behind the ink cloud pupil. However, the content was too obscure. Even with Xiao Hua's current cultivation of Yuanying, he still couldn't understand it. Forget it. Xiao Hua's mind entered his middle dantian, but he saw that the Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua was pinching a sword technique with his hand, and the noble qi from the 5 brocade cloud picture above his head was pouring in, and the crimson clouds around his body were steaming. This was the key to cultivation. Jade Archive Xiao Hua opened his mouth, but he didn't say anything. After thinking for a while, Jade Archive Xiao Hua had to enter his meridians. At this time, he saw that in his meridians, countless golden spiritual qi rushed out from the gold essence, rising marrow like sharp swords. It was refined in his meridians and turned into true qi that flowed into his lower dantian. Jade Archive Xiao Hua stood in his meridians. "Where is Dragon Vein Xiao Hua?" Jade Archive Xiao Hua said with a smile. "I am here. Greetings, fellow Taoist." While speaking, a dragon-shaped Xiao Hua appeared in front of Jade Archive Xiao Hua. "Does fellow Taoist know what I want?" Jade Archive Xiao Hua asked. "I don't know if fellow Taoist can comprehend this ink cloud pupil." "Of course." Dragon Vein Xiao Hua's expression was similar to that of the green-robed Xiao Hua. His tone was very emotional, but his face was stiff. "Thank you, fellow Taoist." Jade Archive Xiao Hua handed the ink cloud pupil to Dragon Vein Xiao Hua. After Dragon Vein Xiao Hua took it, he swallowed it and asked, "Fellow Taoist, where is the jade seal from before? Where is it now?" "That thing is a scourge. It's useless for you and me to take it. I have already given it to someone else." Jade Archive Xiao Hua explained with a smile, then asked, "Why did fellow Taoist suddenly ask about this?" "The dragon qi within the imperial jade seal has already been swallowed by this poor Taoist. What's left inside is just a fart that this poor Taoist let out at the last moment." Dragon Vein Xiao Hua's words made Jade Archive Xiao Hua dumbstruck. This poor Taoist naturally has to ask? This. Jade Archive Xiao Hua scratched his head. "But that's the 5-dragon jade seal of the Confucian cultivator. Why did you put your stinky fart inside?" "I stinky fart is also luck." Dragon Vein Xiao Hua said proudly. "It's 100 times stronger than the luck inside the jade seal." All right. Jade Archive Xiao Hua said in distress. "At this time, only you and I know. Don't let others know. We also know." At this time, the voices of the green-robed Xiao Hua, the Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua, and the other primordial spirits sounded in Jade Archive Xiao Hua's ears. "Damn it, you guys aren't I?" Jade Archive Xiao Hua escaped from the meridians in a sorry state. He really didn't know that if the Confucian cultivator found out that the dragon qi inside the 5-dragon jade seal had been replaced by him, there would be such a thunderous situation. But Xiao Hua was bewildered again. He touched his chin, and a strange smile appeared on his face. He secretly said, "This kind of luck inheritance, is it the Confucian cultivators or my Taoist sex?" Xiao Hua didn't have the chance to think about this question anymore, because in a moment, a rare metal attribute primordial stone lode appeared in front of Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua clapped his hands, and the Yuanying hand was used again. Half a day later, Xiao Hua flew out from the bottom of the lode. This primordial stone lode was really big. It was so big that the greedy Xiao Hua actually felt a kind of dull feeling in his heart. After all, this primordial stone lode was his. As long as he guarded this primordial stone lode, he could come and take it at any time. He was already too lazy to put it into his space. Xiao Hua then called Little Yellow and Little Black over, asked about the situation of the primordial stone lode, and put them into his space again. Xiao Hua didn't pay much attention to Little Yellow's abnormality and only left Little Silver behind. -12. Chapter 35:41. Let's go, Little Silver. Follow this old man to take a look at the ore vein. Xiao Hua called out. Little Silver also chirped in agreement and obediently flew into Xiao Hua's hand. Its snow-white tail curled around Xiao Hua's right thumb and nestled in Xiao Hua's palm, looking very comfortable. Xiao Hua followed the two little ones' instructions and surveyed the entire source stone vein. He then sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes, thinking hard. Previously, he had only wanted to place the Black Wind Ridge in the capital star formation, but after coming out, he wanted to place the entire Black Wind Ridge in the formation as the Fortune Gate's foundation. However, after seeing the source stone vein, Xiao Hua realized that he had to place the source stone vein inside the capital star formation. On one hand, the source stone vein inside the capital star formation could provide an endless supply of source stones for the Fortune Gate or Jiang country. On the other hand, Xiao Hua's capital star formation relied on a jade talisman. Although the jade talisman could absorb origin energy from the outside world to replenish it, if the replenishment speed could not keep up with the speed of destruction, the formation could be easily broken. The 5 brocade clouds painting was a classic example. On the other hand, the capital star formation was built on top of a source stone vein, so there was no need to worry about the lack of origin energy to replenish it. The capital star formation would also be more stable. This was a win-win situation. However, Xiao Hua had never built the capital star array on top of a primordial stone mine before. This was yet another test for him in terms of array formations. However, Xiao Hua had helped the Huang family repair the Heavenly Gate Mountain's Grand Formation, so he had some experience. Xiao Hua pondered over the method to arrange the capital star formation while recalling the layout of the Heavenly Gate Mountain's Grand Formation. He even secretly wondered if Huang Mengxiang was safe. 10 days later, the frowning Xiao Hua gradually calmed down. Another 5 days passed, and Xiao Hua stood up, full of confidence. Soon after, Xiao Hua released his divine sense and probed for a bit before burrowing into the ground and heading towards a certain direction. After half a cup of tea's worth of time, he reappeared between the layers of soil. With a wave of his hand, a jade talisman landed there, and Xiao Hua fled again. After half a cup of tea's worth of time, he reappeared at another location and threw out another jade talisman. After walking like this for more than half a day, Xiao Hua threw out the 358 jade talismans that he had already comprehended. Only then did he land again. He arrived at the side of the first jade talisman, and after a few dozen feet to the side, he arrived at the location of a yuan stone lode. Xiao Hua closed his eyes, activated his magic power, and rubbed his hands together. Wisps of brilliance flashed, and one after another, he formed hand seals. The surrounding yuan qi of heaven and earth quickly rushed toward the yuan stone lode, and on the surface of the yuan stone lode, a rune flashed with earthen yellow brilliance. After a full cup of tea's worth of time, Xiao Hua clenched his hand and chanted, "Quick!" Brilliant light overflowed in all directions as strands of hair-like crystal light appeared, covering an area of nearly 100 feet. Without waiting for the crystal light to disappear, Xiao Hua slapped his hand on the top of his head again, and the hand of his nascent soul appeared once more. Rumble. As if the earth was quaking and the mountains were shaking, the crystal light rushed toward the location of the jade talisman. However, the crystal light only rushed a few feet before it suddenly flew downwards and didn't fly straight toward the jade talisman. "Io, what's going on?" Xiao Hua was shocked, but he didn't dare to be distracted. Now was the crucial moment, and if he couldn't get the crystal light to fall into the jade talisman, all his previous efforts would be wasted. Not only could he not use the nodes of the array, but all the nodes of the jade talisman would have to be changed. "Rise!" Xiao Hua urged his magic power, and the hand of his nascent soul let out a rumbling sound. He grasped the crystal light with great difficulty and rushed toward the jade talisman. However, although Xiao Hua had already urged the hand of his nascent soul, there seemed to be a suction force even stronger than the hand of his nascent soul, and it was fighting with the hand of his nascent soul for the crystal light. Damn it, strange things happen every year, but this year there are especially many. Could it be that there's something strange under this yuan stone mine? Xiao Hua was very helpless, but now that things had come to this, he could only brace himself and try his best to control the hand of his nascent soul. Fortunately, although he consumed a lot of magic power, Xiao Hua still sent the crystal light into the jade talisman. When the crystal light rushed into the jade talisman shone brightly, like a brilliant sun, and merged with the Yuan stone mine that Xiao Hua had previously refined. Good. Xiao Hua finally let out a sigh of relief and wiped the beads of sweat on his forehead. Soon after, Xiao Hua lowered his head to look at the solid layer of earth below him, and a kind of surprise appeared in his eyes. Now that Xiao Hua had the strength of a spirit-severing stage cultivator, it could be said that he was a master of a region. His nascent soul's hand could be easily resisted by a genuine 5th-grade cultivator. So how could there be a suction force for no reason under this Yuan stone mine? Xiao Hua had the intention to first arrange the capital star formation, and then go down to explore, but thinking about how much magic power it would consume to arrange more than 300 places, this was not something that could be easily dealt with. After thinking for a while, Xiao Hua urged the earth escape technique to go down the Yuan stone mine. After traveling for the time it took to eat a meal, Xiao Hua was afraid that he had already traveled several thousand meters underground. A kind of enormous buoyancy gradually appeared around Xiao Hua's body and began to prevent Xiao Hua from traveling any further. Xiao Hua understood that he was about to reach the limit of earth escape. However, when he reached this place, he still didn't see anything special. Xiao Hua was completely bewildered. After all, he was several thousand feet underground. Even if he was on the ground, it was still the height of a mountain. At such a high distance, what in the world was affecting him from arranging the formation? After thinking for a while, Xiao Hua's eyes flashed with a faint blue brilliance, and the delirium destruction technique slowly opened. When Xiao Hua raised his eyes to look around, he couldn't help but be stunned, and then a kind of indescribable ecstasy welled up in his heart. In the delirium destruction technique within the faint yellow brilliance, strands of black brilliance and strands of fiery red brilliance intertwined with each other, and like a light mist, they fell down from all directions. Xiao Hua's entire body was within this black and red brilliance, and the most strange thing was that these rays of light were not straight, but actually curved and extremely magnificent. They converged at a place far away from Xiao Hua's feet. How familiar this situation was. Wasn't it the same situation when Xiao Hua, who was refining qi, went to the netherworld to gain experience before he reached the foundation establishment stage and saw the metal earth magnetic field? It was just that the brown brilliance had been replaced with black brilliance, and the golden brilliance had been replaced with fiery red brilliance. Moreover, this brilliance was extremely faint, and not as dense as the magnetic field near the metal earth magnetic field. And the arc of these rays of light was exactly the same as before. Xiao Hua really couldn't suppress the ecstasy in his heart, because as early as in the sage's Jiang Xinshui Palace, Xian had already transmitted to him the materials used to refine the 5 elements wishful heaven cudgel. These materials were water and fire magnets, wood and water magnets, water and fire magnets, fire and earth magnets, and earth and metal magnets. These 5 types of magnets were extremely heavy, and they reinforced and restrained each other. If the 5 types of magnets were refined together, they could be called one, and the 5 elements could be balanced between each other, no longer being affected by the 5 elements of the outside world, and achieve the goal of not entering the 5 elements. Of course, Xian didn't know how these 5 types of magnets were refined together. At that time, Xiao Hua thought of the metal earth magnetic field in the netherworld of the Dawn Rain continent, but he didn't expect that under the Black Cloud Ridge's primordial stone mine, there was actually such a water and fire magnetic field hidden. Since there was such a water and fire magnetic field here, it was reasonable that the Black Cloud Ridge had such a large primordial stone mine. Now that he had discovered the materials used to refine the 5 elements wishful heaven cudgel, how could Xiao Hua be willing to leave? He hurriedly urged his transcendence energy to continue to escape. Sure enough, a moment later, a powerful suction force was generated, pulling the things in Xiao Hua's arms and the small Qinkuan bag at his waist. It should be the water and fire magnetic field taking effect. Xiao Hua was overjoyed and hurriedly stored everything into the space. Only then did he continue to escape. Another half a cup of tea later, a layer of pitch-black, cloud-like things appeared in front of Xiao Hua's eyes, blocking his escape path. In his transcendence vision, the black and fiery red brilliance had already completely condensed into thin lines, directly rushing through the cloud-like things and falling inside. Based on Xiao Hua's experience, he knew that behind the pitch-black fog was the water and fire magnetic field space. Only, this pitch-black fog was rather strange. It could actually appear in his transcendence vision, naturally causing Xiao Hua to be immediately on guard. Xiao Hua closed his transcendence vision and opened his eyes. That black fog had transformed into a kind of viscous liquid. It seemed to be motionless, but from time to time, tiny whirlpools would appear. When Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over, it actually swallowed his divine sense. Oh, this Xiao understands now. Those strange black clouds in the black cloud ridge. I'm afraid they were formed by these pitch-black things seeping out of the ground. Xiao Hua inwardly pondered. If I were to use magic treasures to break through, it would be unrealistic. Now that I'm already close to the water magnetic field space, all magic treasures would be attracted by the magnetic field, basically unable to display their effects. After thinking for a moment, Xiao Hua opened his mouth and a wisp of spiritual fire rushed out. Following Xiao Hua's divine fire art, it immediately transformed into a net of fire and pounced into the black clouds. Zzz. First, there was the sound of water droplets falling into a pot of oil, followed by waves of what seemed to be howling in the air from within the black fog. Immediately after, within a radius of 1 zhang in front of Xiao Hua, a gap immediately appeared where the spiritual fire rushed in. Once this gap appeared, a powerful suction force immediately came from within the gap. Xiao Hua hastily urged his earth escape technique to rush into the gap. There was actually an extremely large amount of black fog, just like a deep pool. Xiao Hua controlled the spiritual fire to continuously sink down, descending no less than 100 zhang before he finally escaped from the black fog. At this moment, although it was pitch black beneath Xiao Hua's feet, his transcendence vision once again overflowed with light and vibrant colors. Right below Xiao Hua's feet, a long rainbow-like thick fiery red light beam could be seen pushing up the pitch-black fog high up into the sky. Those fiery red light beams converged in the distance. The place in the distance was like an oval sun, slowly rotating. However, this sun was not a single color, but a mixture of fiery red and black. When these two splendors intertwined together, it looked so beautiful and so profound. Wasn't this space precisely the water-fire magnetic field space? -12. Chapter 3542. Xiao Hua smiled. He had a few drops of metal essence in his space, but they were all used when he was setting up the formation. Now that he was refining it in his meridians, it was far less satisfying than the fire essence flame crystal and earth crystal Yao milk. Now that he had reached the metal and wood magnetism, not to mention the wood essence flame crystal, he also had to get some metal essence flame crystal. Xiao Hua's current cultivation level was far from what the aura refining realm could compare to in the past. It wasn't too difficult for him to activate his magic power. He landed above the metal and wood magnetism and opened his transcendence vision to take a look. The place where Xiao Hua landed was precisely where the wood elemental magnetic field was densely green in color. There were speckles of gold in this green color. Xiao Hua's transcendence vision had already discovered a few spots of newly formed metal elemental vitality essence that were about to fall into the magnetic field. Xiao Hua slapped the top of his head with his hand and used his yuanying hand. However, the suction force within this magnetic field was simply too strong. The yuanying hand had only just appeared when it was immediately torn apart by the enormous suction force. It simply couldn't descend. Heh. Xiao Hua wasn't dispirited. He lowered his body slightly and moved closer to a drop of metal essence. With a wave of his hand, the heaven and earth sleeve technique was used. In an instant, the drop of metal essence was covered. With a turn of his mind, the drop of metal essence was stored into the space. This was many times better than back then. In just the time it took to eat a meal, Xiao Hua actually collected 61 drops of metal essence flame crystal. However, it wouldn't be easy to find more. Xiao Hua looked at the strands of golden light falling on the surface of the metal and wood magnetism but didn't condense into metal essence flame crystal. He looked pensive. I'm afraid metal essence flame crystal can only be formed when the metal attributed spiritual energy of heaven and earth has condensed to a certain degree. Previously, I didn't come here, so the surface of the metal and wood magnetism was thick enough. Now that I've collected all the metal essence flame crystal, it can't condense to this degree in a short period of time. It might take a period of time for it to condense again, right? Who? Just as Xiaohua was pondering, he suddenly became alert. He raised his head and saw a palm-sized azure dragon several zhang away from him. It was looking at him with bared fangs and brandished claws. Its eyes were full of curiosity. Oh my, this is an azure dragon? Xiaohua suddenly realized, an primordial azure dragon. But without waiting for Xiaohua to take another look, the azure dragon suddenly pounced into the magnetic field and disappeared. I understand. Xiaohua's eyes narrowed slightly, as if he had thought of something. This Xiao seems to have seen a faint shadow in Mingxi's magnetic space. At that time, it seemed to be in the metal magnetic space. Thinking of this, Xiaohua raised his head and looked at the place where the golden and green rays of light converged in the extreme distance. Hiss! Xiaohua looked at the other side that even his transcendence vision couldn't see and sucked in a breath of cold air. How big is this metal and wood magnetism? This Xiao's divine sense is indeed strong enough, and my mind is also being tempered to practice the art of fusing with my divine sense. However, it's impossible for me to absorb the metal and wood elemental magnetism into my space. Forget it, one shouldn't be too greedy as a person. Xiaohua's mind spun a few times, then he smiled and said, let's get some wood essence crystals first. As for the matter of collecting metal and wood essences, let's talk about it later. Soon after, Xiaohua flew to the other side and collected the same 61 drops of wood essence crystals in the metal magnetic space. Only then did he stop. Sure enough, right after Xiaohua collected the wood essence serpent crystal, a similarly palm-sized golden tiger flashed out from the air. Looking at Xiaohua, it roared a few times at Xiaohua before also pouncing into the magnetic field and disappearing. Seeing the golden tiger enter the magnetic space, Xiaohua released his divine sense. He wanted to see how big this magnetic space was. Unfortunately, even though he had the strength of a spirit-severing stage expert, his powerful divine sense was still affected by the magnetic force when it was so close to the magnetic space. It was only released 100 zhang before it was torn apart. It was simply unable to go very far. Since even his divine sense couldn't cover the metal and wood essences, Xiaohua's mind couldn't either. Xiaohua had to take back his luck and once again regretfully looked at the metal and wood essences that made him drool. Then he prepared to fly out. However, just as he flew under the black qi and his transcendence vision caught sight of the overflowing golden light rays, Xiaohua felt as if he had forgotten something. Thus, he simply stopped moving forward and simply stood there. His gaze followed the rotation of the golden light rays, and his eyeballs also followed the slow rotation of the metal and wood primary magnetism. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Xiaohua finally came to his senses. He said with a smile, I was somewhat careless. The wishful steel staff is so heavy, but my mind can collect it without any effort. The load of primordial stones is not particularly heavy, but it can't be easily collected because the wishful steel staff has been tempered. The medium for this tempering is my blood essence. With my blood essence wishful steel staff, I can use it as I wish. I don't need to use my blood essence to collect the primordial stones, but the metal and wood essences are worth it. If I don't have my blood essence, with the power of the metal and wood essences, I'm afraid that I can only have the strength to collect them into the space to refine the wishful steel staff, right? This time, it's really a bit too long. Xiaohua thought of using his blood essence to refine the metal and wood essences, but how could his blood essence be refined into this huge metal and wood essences? Just now, Xiaohua flew from one end of the wood essences to the other end of the metal essences. It was really difficult. According to Xiaohua's own measurement, this metal and wood essences was hundreds of acres in size. Even if Xiaohua used the Demon Realm's blood refining technique, it was impossible to refine this metal and wood essences for the time being, right? The only possibility was to send the metal and wood essences into the space, and let the green-robed Xiaohua or the Jade Archive Xiaohua do it. But since the metal and wood essences could be sent into the space, why bother to use the blood refining technique? Looking at such a huge pie in the sky, Xiaohua scratched his head. However, he still frowned and pondered carefully. With his Dharma eyes, he saw strands of golden light shooting out from one part of the golden light, forming an arc in the magnetic space, then landing on the other end of the green light. Meanwhile, strands of green light flew out from the green light and landed on the golden light. These golden and green light strands then intertwined with each other on the surface of the metal and wood magnetic space, ceaselessly interweaving with each other. Maybe I can try this. Xiao Hua's eyes fell on the glittering metal essence's pole, and an incredible idea appeared in his heart. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua once again urged his transcendence energy to fly towards the pole of the metal essence's pole. However, the closer he got to the pole, the earlier attractive force turned into a kind of repulsive force, and this repulsive force became even stronger. It made Xiao Hua feel that even if he exhausted all the transcendence energy in his body, he absolutely couldn't get close to the pole of the metal essence's pole. Helpless, Xiao Hua had no choice but to use the metal escape technique. It was fine if he didn't use the metal escape technique, but when he used it, Xiao Hua felt as if his body was in a surging torrent. His entire body couldn't help but want to fly towards the other end of the metal essence's pole with the golden light. Damn it, wrong. It should be the wood escape technique. Xiao Hua suddenly realized and hurriedly changed to the wood escape technique. Sure enough, Xiao Hua's body came to a sudden stop, and then his entire body rapidly flew towards the pole of the metal essence's pole. There was simply no need for Xiao Hua to urge any transcendence energy. Good. Xiao Hua beamed with joy, but unfortunately, it was only for a moment. When Xiao Hua's body was about 100 feet away from the pole, his body stopped again, and that strange repulsive force reappeared. The more Xiao Hua urged his transcendence energy, the stronger the repulsive force became. Yes, this is the repulsive force of the metal essence's pole. Xiao Hua already understood these few changes. Although I am using the wood escape technique, my transcendence energy is still within the 5 elements. Since it is within the 5 elements, it has the metal attribute, and it will be repulsed by the pole of the metal essence's pole, unless I have transcendence energy with no element. I don't know if transcendence energy without any element exists in this world, but I know that there is a physical body without any element. After understanding the reason, Xiao Hua didn't dare to urge any more transcendence energy. He also thought of the spiritual fire and the innate primordial water. After all, these were pure objects of the 5 elements, and they could conceal the 5 elements within his transcendence energy. However, the corner of his mouth only curled up, and he simply didn't urge any transcendence energy, and directly landed on the metal essence's pole. Sure enough, after withdrawing all his transcendence energy, Xiao Hua no longer felt any repulsive or attractive force. He already knew why his so-called demigod body could approach the metal essence's pole, and why Mo Qingyuan and the others couldn't approach the metal essence's pole even though they knew that it was there. It was because his physical body didn't have any element. Of course, the current Xiao Hua didn't know that his physical body didn't have any element because it absorbed the primal chaos qi when it floated down from the void. After walking a few dozen meters, the repulsive force appeared again. However, this repulsive force was directed at Xiao Hua's clothes, so it didn't attract Xiao Hua's attention. Just as he was about to reach the limit, Xiao Hua's Taoist robe began to flutter due to the magnetic force. Although Xiao Hua didn't care, it was really uncomfortable. He might as well go all the way. Xiao Hua put away his Taoist robe and became naked again. When he reached the extreme point, Xiao Hua didn't dare to open his transcendence energy eyes again. The golden light of the extreme point was really too dazzling, and Xiao Hua's transcendence energy eyes were aching. It was difficult to continue. When Xiao Hua's naked eye reached this point, it didn't have the usual effect of producing light in the dark, so he couldn't see anything. Therefore, Xiao Hua simply closed his eyes and groped his way to the extreme point. He activated the blood drop paradise technique in his body, and a drop of blood essence dripped from his finger and landed on the extreme point. The drop of blood fell. Shwa. An almost inaudible sound was heard, and the 5 elements objects within the drop of blood immediately flew out. It was simply impossible to touch the extreme point, and the drop of blood instantly shrunk several times. This even finer drop of blood slowly fell, and it was several times slower than usual. The golden magnetic light passed through this drop of blood, and the entire drop of blood slightly swelled, as if it was boiling. Every time it swelled, the drop of blood would shrink a size. When the drop of blood reached the extreme point, it had already turned into an extremely small drop, even smaller than the tip of a needle. At this moment, how could the drop of blood still look like a drop of blood? Although there was still a little red, the golden color was even denser, and this golden color was formed by countless, even finer golden threads. In a trance, this golden thread actually formed Xiaohua's image, and that little red dot seemed to be a dark red dot between the image's eyebrows. -12. Chapter 35:43. The moment the drop of blood landed on the pole, it was silent and formless. Neither the entire metal and wood elemental magnetic field, nor the magnetic field space had any obvious changes. However, Xiaohua clearly sensed that his blood had penetrated to the extreme. Even though he didn't know that so many changes had occurred during the process of his blood dripping down, Xiaohua didn't know that his blood had penetrated to the extreme. Good. Xiaohua cheered inwardly. He urged the transcendence energy in his body and used the metal escape technique. His entire body was pushed out of the pole as fast as lightning, straight to the top of the magnetic field space. Xiaohua stood still in midair and opened his abnormally tired transcendence eyes again. He looked at the golden rays of light flying out of the pole of the metal elemental magnetic field. After looking at it for a long time, he still couldn't see anything strange. Could it be that the drop of blood didn't enter the pole? With that thought, the demonic aura around Xiaohua's body flourished. Strands of black aura mixed with black flames rushed out again. The real devil god Xiaohua appeared again. In the past, Xiaohua didn't have demonic aura to rely on. His divine sense urged the spiritual fire to use the blood refining technique. Now that Xiaohua had truly practiced the blood-dripping paradise, this blood-refining technique was also authentic. However, the demon god Xiaohua's black flames surged and landed on the extreme point like tentacles. There was no movement at the extreme point. The blood-refining technique was not effective at all. Motherfucker, what's going on? After thinking for a while, Xiaohua flew to the pole of the wood elemental magnetic field to be on the safe side. Similarly, he sent another drop of blood essence into it. Then, he used the blood refining technique again. Unfortunately, this time, he still failed. After losing 2 drops of blood essence at once, Xiaohua felt a wave of fatigue. His left arm had been chopped off by the demonic saber in the mysterious water palace. Although the demonic saber hadn't been able to devour the bone in his left arm was still reattached. Moreover, the demonic saber was also attached to his left arm. However, his essence was damaged after all. After returning, he was injured again in the battle against the 5 brocade cloud painting. The 100 days of secluded cultivation just now really weren't enough. His essence hadn't recovered very well. The exhausted Xiaohua felt somewhat helpless. He closed his eyes and wanted to sense it, but in this magnetic field space, this kind of perception was also blocked. Xiaohua clearly knew that his blood had entered the metal elemental magnetic field. Even the blood refining technique he had placed high hopes on couldn't succeed. As for whether his blood essence would work, he had no idea. However, even if it works, how can I use the blood refining technique on such a large metal elemental magnetic field? Obviously, ordinary blood refining techniques are already useless. Who knows where those 2 drops of blood essence went? Facing such a large metal and wood magnetism, Xiaohua could be considered to be completely helpless. Forget it. I'll return empty-handed again today. Xiaohua stood in the magnetic field space and pondered for a long time. He really didn't have any clue. All the techniques he used were greatly restricted in this magnetic field space. It was useless to stay here any longer. Xiaohua immediately came out of the magnetic field space. He used his spiritual fire to burn a hole in the black gas and escaped from the ground. The metal elemental magnetic field itself was protected by the magnetic field space. Now that it was wrapped in an unpredictable black gas, Xiaohua believed that even if someone discovered this place, they wouldn't be able to enter. He also wasn't worried that the metal elemental magnetic field would be taken away by others. When Xiaohua escaped back to the elemental stone vein, he didn't have much magic power left and his spirit was also very tired. He swallowed a few medicinal pills and closed his eyes to meditate. In the following dozens of days, Xiaohua rested while setting up the formation. Although setting up the formation under the influence of the metal elemental magnetic field was very tiring and consumed a lot of magic power, with the support of the new metal elemental essence and the nourishment of the 5 Qi righteous thunder, the greedy Xiaohua would be full of energy every time he thought about the elemental stone vein below him. When the 300-plus light balls folded and became one with the elemental stone vein, Xiaohua let out a long breath. After resting for several hours, he urged his magic power to rush out of the black cloud ridge and flew high into the sky. He first closed his eyes for a moment, then sat cross-legged in the sky. He clapped his hands, and the formless nascent soul escaped from the 5 Qi righteous thunder in his lower dantian. This was the first time Xiaohua had set up such a large formation. He didn't dare to let green-robed Xiaohua do it, and specially controlled it himself. The nascent soul rubbed its hands together and formed seals one after another. Waves of dense elemental energy of heaven and earth descended from the sky and bombarded the surroundings of the black cloud ridge. The majestic aura was not inferior to the noble Qi pillar used by the Confucian cultivators. The demons of the black cloud ridge turned pale with fright. They all held their weapons and rushed out of the ground. Even the Dao soldiers that were training in the black cloud ridge hurriedly set up the formation and prepared to face the enemy. However, when the crowd and demons saw Xiaohua sitting cross-legged in midair with a myriad of brilliance around his body, they all subconsciously prostrated themselves and slowly retreated, not daring to disturb him. Xiaohua's nascent soul couldn't be seen by others. They could only see Xiaohua sitting in the sky with his palms facing the sky. He didn't make any movements, but he was actually able to raise the wind and move the clouds. Rays of golden light were emitted from Xiaohua's body and pillars of qi struck the ground. Following the brilliance and pillars of qi, lumps of sparkling stars were also born near the black cloud ridge. More and more time passed. The sky was already dark. However, the stars of the black cloud ridge contrasted with the stars in the sky. Xiaohua, who was surrounded by stars, was even brighter than the full moon in the sky. At this time, Xiaohua's figure could no longer be seen. There was only a 5-colored dazzling light that slowly rotated there. Every time this dazzling light rotated, a ray of light would fall to the ground and another star would appear on the ground. More than 350 nodes of the capital star formation had to be activated, and the balance of the formation had to be maintained during each activation. This was far more convenient than using several hundred jade talismans. Xiaohua didn't dare to slack off in the slightest. The magic power in his body also didn't dare to stagnate in the slightest. However, when the moon set and the sun rose, the formation had only just finished setting up nearly 100 nodes. At this time, the pitiful and fearless Xiaohua was really riding a tiger and couldn't get off. How could he know that the formation he was setting up right now was a sect protection formation commonly used by cultivation sections? Not to mention that this formation was the rarely seen capital star formation. Even if it was an ordinary formation, how could it be set up by a nascent soul cultivator? However, all the elders of a sect would work together, and each of them would be responsible for a part of the formation. In the end, the sect leader or elder with the highest cultivation or formation attainment would preside over the activation of the formation. How could it be set up by a single person? After waiting for another half a day, Xiaohua's energy was really unable to support himself. He had no choice but to call out the green-robed Xiaohua and temporarily let him control his nascent soul to continue setting up the formation. The green-robed Xiaohua seemed to be omnipotent in the space. However, when he arrived at the hidden immortal continent, he was unable to make ends meet. He was indeed somewhat unfamiliar with setting up the formation. There were several dangerous mistakes. It wasn't that the green-robed Xiaohua's ability to set up the formation was inferior to Xiaohua's, but the green-robed Xiaohua really couldn't endure the lack of origin qi on the hidden immortal continent. He had fallen into a predicament where even the cleverest housewife couldn't cook without rice. After helping the green-robed Xiaohua set up several nodes, Xiaohua simply closed his eyes and rested. After another half a day, Xiaohua opened his eyes and waved his hands. He separated some magic power from his meridians and prepared to set up the formation. Who would have thought that when he separated his true essence, The green-robed Xiaohua on top of his head slowed down again. This scared the green-robed Xiaohua so much that he forcefully took away his true essence. Alas, Xiaohua sighed. Previously, when the green-robed Xiaohua controlled his nascent soul to fight against the 5 brocade cloud painting, Xiaohua only relied on the power of his corporeal body. The two of them didn't have any conflict. Now that the two of them were activating their magic power together, there was a problem with their coordination. Therefore, Xiaohua didn't dare to intercept true essence from his meridians. He was somewhat bored as he looked at the green-robed Xiaohua setting up the formation. He couldn't help but think in his heart, now that the nascent soul and the corporeal body are using the same meridians, there will definitely be a conflict. If the nascent soul cultivates its own 100 meridians and the corporeal body cultivates according to my sect's cultivation method, then the nascent soul has its own true essence. Wouldn't the corporeal body also have its own true essence? Wouldn't there be no conflict like this? Other people's nascent souls only have 2 meridians, but my nascent soul is made up of meridians. It can definitely cultivate. It's a pity. Just when Xiaohua was feeling regretful, he suddenly stared blankly. His eyes lit up and he thought, now that I'm using the 5 Qi righteous thunder to nourish my nascent soul, isn't that just walking the path of nascent soul cultivation? If there's any cultivation method, I'll let the green-robed nascent soul cultivate, and I'll cultivate the sect's cultivation method myself. But that's also not right. Ultimately, the sect's cultivation method is also based on the nascent soul. If I don't have a nascent soul, how can I cultivate? The more Xiaohua thought, the more confused he became. Then, naturally, there was no then. Xiaohua had always had this kind of wild imagination. Most of them ended up with nothing. However, if he was really able to understand it, then it would be a world-shaking action. Rumble. Another day and night passed. The green-robed Xiaohua was finally tired. Xiaohua took control of his nascent soul. As he waved his hands, there was actually the sound of wind and thunder. Since the second night, in the sky, between the layers of thick clouds that had shrouded the black cloud ridge, flashes of lightning and thunder began to appear. As Xiaohua laid down the last few dozen nodes, the heavenly thunder was also drumming at the side to cheer him on. Xiaohua didn't pay attention to this kind of astronomical phenomenon. After all, he had laid down such a big formation, which consumed a lot of heaven and earth yuan qi. The heaven and earth yuan qi around the black cloud ridge was starting to become scarce. The heaven and earth yuan qi from other places would definitely cause a certain astronomical phenomenon. The last few dozen nodes were even more difficult. Xiaohua felt as if he was walking on a narrow cliff. On his shoulders was a heavy burden that exceeded his strength. That burden swayed, one moment in front, one moment in back, one moment in left, one moment in right. If he wasn't careful, he would fall off the cliff. It was really tiring. The people and demons of the Black Cloud Ridge were all dumbfounded. The situation in front of them was even more dazzling than the 5 brocade cloud painting previously. The entire Black Cloud Ridge was completely enveloped by hundreds of starlight. A kind of heavenly might, an unstoppable feeling, surged over like waves after waves, as if it was going to drown them. Many of the Fey spirits and Dao soldiers with lower cultivations fell limp on the ground. Although Xiao Jian, Qin Xiaoyao, and the others could withstand it, their hearts were in suspense. They were afraid that if Xiaohua was careless, the formation would collapse, and everyone would be killed by the formation. -12. Chapter 35-44. Fortunately, the disaster they were worried about didn't happen. After 2 days and 2 nights, the formless nascent soul waved its hand and more than 300 bolts of lightning shot down like dragons. The entire Black Cloud Ridge shook. Then, more than 300 rays of light shot up into the sky and intertwined in midair. Xiaohua shouted, "Suppress!" Who? All of the brilliance entered his hand at the same time, and all of the vibrations disappeared completely. In Xiaohua's hand, there was another jade tablet that looked like a stone tablet. It was covered with stars, and its brilliance was brilliant. Congratulations to Master for setting up the array. Congratulations to Master for the good health of your body. The demons and cultivators of Black Cloud Ridge looked at the clouds and the moon in the sky. Then, they saw that the entire Black Cloud Ridge didn't change at all. Seeing that they couldn't use their divine senses or elemental senses, they all knelt down and cheered loudly. Xiaohua looked at everyone and waved his hand. Wait here. Now that my Black Cloud Ridge's array is complete, it's even more impregnable than before. You can cultivate in peace. Thank you, Master. Everyone got up and went to do their own things. Xiaoyao, you're in charge of this mountain-suppressing spirit tablet. All the uses are recorded in the jade eyes. Xiaohua said as he threw the jade tablet to Qin Xiaoyao. Qin Xiaoyao took the jade tablet under everyone's envious gaze and bowed. Disciple understands. Then, Xiaohua didn't say anything else and went into his cave to cultivate in seclusion. This heavenly stars array made Xiaohua want to cry. Now that he was in the nascent soul realm and had the strength of the 5th grade of elemental energy, he felt that it was still not enough. If it weren't for green-robed Xiaohua and the metal essence new marrow, he would have lost face in front of all the cultivators who called him master. Xiaohua's seclusion lasted for more than a month. Qin Xiaoyao didn't dare to be negligent after taking the jade tablet. He first comprehended the usage of the jade tablet and the jade eyes that Xiaohua gave him. Then, he arranged the human cultivator's defense and cultivation, and discussed the demon's defense with the black bear spirit, the golden eagle, and the white lion. He was very busy. Previously, the black bear spirit and the other demons did not pay much attention to Qin Xiaoyao. However, after seeing Xiaohua setting up the array and witnessing the power of the 5 brocade cloud portrait, they had no choice but to listen to Qin Xiaoyao's arrangements for the sake of their own lives. Fortunately, Qin Xiaoyao knew Xiaohua's plan and knew how to deal with people, so he didn't have any conflicts with the 3 demon kings. In this month or so, the aftermath of Xiaohua's battle that made him famous gradually revealed itself. Not only did the scattered cultivators and Dao soldiers of the Jiang country come over to seek refuge, even other rogue cultivators, or Dao sect cultivators who wanted to find a backer came over to strike up a conversation. Of course, some students and rangers from the Confucian cultivator country also began to come over to spy, but in the face of Xiaohua's mountain-protecting grand array, most of them returned without success. This was just a small disturbance before the storm. Qin Xiaoyao knew very well that all he could do was help Xiaohua build the Fortune Gate and fulfill the responsibility of an outer sect disciple of the Fortune Gate. What he urgently wanted was for the Chongling princess and Xiao Jian to act as soon as possible, gather the old subordinates of Jiang country, recruit soldiers, and reclaim Jiang country as soon as possible. This way, the pressure on Black Cloud Ridge would lessen. However, reviving the country was not a small matter. How could it be done just by thinking about it? The Chongling princess was busy day and night, and Xiao Jian was also working hard to assist her. Every day, he saw the 2 generals Qianli and Kongli send out soldiers, and at the same time, he saw the soldiers sent out in the past come back. But to what extent they had progressed and how much confidence they had, not to mention Qin Xiaoyao, even the Chongling princess herself didn't know. However, both Qin Xiaoyao and the Chongling princess were full of confidence now. They never thought that there would be any problems with the Fortune Gate, or any problems with the revival of Jiang country, because they knew that as long as Xiaohua was present, all of this was just a matter of time. All of the problems, in front of Xiaohua's cultivation, were as easy as snapping a finger. Everything seemed to be proceeding in an orderly manner. On this day, Xiaohua emerged from seclusion. In the past month or so, Xiaohua had not only recovered his cultivation, but also comprehended secret techniques. Most of the time, he was considering what to do next. Since the great formation of Black Cloud Ridge had been set up, and Xiaohua was confident that this great formation could withstand the attacks of cultivators of 5th or even 6th level, then he could leave Black Cloud Ridge and go to Qinyu Mountain to rescue Jiang country's 2nd national teacher, Li Xiang. After all, Li Xiang had been a national teacher before and had more experience than him. Especially when Li Xiang was a Yuanian cultivator, he could be a deterrent when he left Black Cloud Ridge. This must have been Qin Xiaoyao's plan when he told him about Li Xiang's imprisonment in the Qinyu Mountain. As expected, when Xiaohua walked out of the seclusion room, Lu Yi, who was waiting in the abode, came forward to greet him. He said that Qin Xiaoyao had already come several times and seemed to have important matters to report. Let Qin Xiaoyao come in. Xiaohua nodded. Not long after, Qin Xiaoyao hurried in, bowed in greeting, and then asked directly, "Old Master, this disciple has 2 matters to report, and asks Old Master to decide." "Speak," Xiaohua asked with a smile. First of all, after Master set up the spell formation, many Taoist cultivators came to seek refuge. Those with low cultivation bases didn't need to be mentioned. When I saw those with good aptitudes, I discussed with them to see if they were willing to become Master's disciples. Of course, this disciple does not dare to say that he is a Fortune Gate disciple, and only says that he is a disciple of the Jiang country's national teacher. If he is not willing to become a disciple of Old Master, and wants to rely on Old Master, disciple will follow the customs of the Jiang country and treat him as a guest. Qin Xiaoyao reported, "There are also some with higher cultivations, and there are even a few with higher cultivations than disciple and the others. Although disciple has treated these people as guests, it seems that they are still a little dissatisfied." "Oh? What's there to be dissatisfied about?" Xiaohua was puzzled. Many of those cultivators of the Dao sect are at the 3rd level of origin energy. They feel that their cultivation is high, and they want more, such as origin stones and pills. Qin Xiaoyao's brows revealed a worried expression. It was obvious that these cultivators who could be considered his seniors were making things difficult for him. Xiaohua sneered, "Don't bother. If they want to stay in the Black Cloud Ridge, then they have to listen to you. If they don't want to, they can leave. There is no need to force them to stay." "If they can leave, disciple doesn't have to be so worried." Qin Xiaoyao smiled bitterly. Old Master's great array is really good. After they saw it, they insisted on staying in the Black Cloud Ridge. "Kill them." Xiaohua made a prompt decision and said indifferently, "You control the Great Mountain Protection Array's spirit tablet, and can control the power of the array. As long as you are in the array, you can kill anyone you want. There is no need to report this to this old man." "That's not good, right?" Qin Xiaoyao was a little hesitant. They are after all disciples of the Dao sect, and some of them even came from afar to seek refuge with Old Master. Since they want to seek refuge with this old man, then they have to listen to this old man's arrangements. Xiaohua waved his hand. "You are in charge of the Great Array, and are someone this old man trusts. If they don't even listen to you, what's the point of keeping them?" "Yes, Old Master, disciple understands." It wasn't that Qin Xiaoyao hadn't thought about this, but he knew that Xiaohua was merciful. He was afraid that Xiaohua would be dissatisfied with his actions, so he naturally had to report it. "Also, Old Master, there's news from the Jade Mountain that a few Confucian cultivators have personally come to the Jade Mountain. They probably want to wait for Old Master to go there. Senior Li's matter. Why don't we talk about it later?" Qin Xiaoyao bit his lips and asked in a low voice, "No need. This Xiao came out of seclusion today for this matter." Xiaohua stood up and said, "I will leave everything in the Black Cloud Ridge to you. Helping this old man look after the cave is a great merit. Xiaohua will definitely reward you when he returns." "Old Master." Hearing that Xiaohua had given the Black Cloud Ridge to him, Qin Xiaoyao was not happy, but rather shocked and anxiously shouted, "This disciple was a disciple who escaped from Jiang country, although his cultivation is the best, but it is not enough to convince the masses. Why don't you give the cave to Lu Yi or Wang Bianfei? The 2 of them are Old Master's servants. No one dares to say anything." "The 2 of them want to go with me," Xiaohua said with a smile. Lu Yi and Wang Bianfei were overjoyed and knelt down. "Thank you, Old Master." Qin Xiaoyao smiled bitterly, biting his lips, and went forward again. "Old Master, if it is like this, why don't we ask the Chongling Princess or Xiao Jin to give orders? Right now, they are in charge of Jiang country's restoration plan. It is the most important matter for my Black Cloud Ridge." "It's different," Xiaohua said firmly. "Jiang country is Jiang country. Black Cloud Ridge is Black Cloud Ridge. Fortune Gate is Fortune Gate. We cannot be too confused. Also, Xiao Jin and Chongling's affairs are even more complicated. How can it be better than you practicing the formation and looking after the cave for this old man?" "But," Qin Xiaoyao still wanted to say something, but how could Xiaohua be willing to listen? He waved his hand and said, "Xiaoyao, if you don't want this old man to save Li Xiang, you can tell me the reason. This old man can listen. If you don't have such thoughts, this old man will leave now." This old man wants to see what methods the Copper Pillar country has to stop this old man from helping Jiang country restore. Yes, old master. Qin Xiaoyao agreed helplessly. He knew that the burden on his shoulders was getting heavier. Lu Yi, where are the books from the Copper Pillar Academy? Xiao Hua asked as he walked out of the cave. Old master, they are all here. Hearing this, Lu Yi hurriedly took out a Chinquin bag from his waist and answered, the Copper Pillar Academy sent a lot of books. This little one originally wanted to put these books in the seclusion room. But seeing that the seclusion room is far away, this little one asks Sect Uncle Qin to put the books into this Chinquin bag for old master to inspect. Not bad. Xiao Hua received it with a smile and sent it into the space. After leaving the cave, Xiao Hua said to Wang Bianfei, go tell your mother that you are going out with this old man. At least 3 months, at most half a year. Yes, old master. Wang Bianfei did not dare to be negligent and hurriedly ran out. In the time it took to brew a cup of tea, he came back. -12. Chapter 35:45. Okay, there's no need to say anymore. Xiaoyao, help me look after the cave. This is a 1,000-mile sound-transmitting talisman. If you have any urgent matters, you can release this talisman. This bronze pillar country is only 2,000 miles in size. This talisman should be able to reach you. Xiao Hua took out a 1,000-mile sound-transmitting talisman and gave it to Qin Xiaoyao. Qin Xiaoyao received the 1,000-mile sound-transmitting talisman and carefully put it away. He then reminded Master, Jade Mountain is on the other side of the bronze pillar country. It's more than 2,000 miles away. Master must be careful. This old man knows. With that, Xiao Hua waved his hand and the Pegasus flew out from the space. Slurp slurp. Once the Pegasus came out of the space, it immediately emitted a faint white brilliance. The Pegasus spread its wings and emitted a white light. It even raised its head and let out a long neigh that shook the surroundings. Master, take care. Qin Xiaoyao hurriedly bowed and saluted. This disciple respectfully sends Master off. With a wave of Xiao Hua's hand, Lu Yi and Wang Bifei flew up from the ground and landed on the neck of the heavenly horse. Xiao Hua also got on the heavenly horse. Then, Xiao Hua patted the heavenly horse's neck. The heavenly horse's 4 hooves stomped on the ground as it flapped its wings and soared into the sky. Not long after, the heavenly horse's brilliance turned into a small dot. Only Xiao Hua's singing voice could be heard in the entire Black Cloud Ridge. The Black Cloud Ridge's battle formation has been completed. From now on, the Dao Gate has a foundation. Respectfully sends Master off. On the Black Cloud Ridge, whether it was seeing the Pegasus brilliance or hearing Xiao Hua's singing voice, everyone respectfully shouted, Io. Only Qin Xiaoyao raised his head from the ground and hurriedly raised his hand as if he wanted to remind Xiao Hua. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua's figure had already disappeared. Qin Xiaoyao could only mutter in his heart, Master, you're flying in the wrong direction. Early morning several days later, on the other side of the Bronze Pillar country's capital, the sun shone down. The city walls of the Bronze Pillar country looked especially mighty under the sunlight. Under the warm sunlight, teams of heavily armored soldiers patrolled back and forth with weapons in their hands. These soldiers had tense and serious expressions on their faces, as if a great battle was about to break out. Open the city gate. Below the city wall, a loud and clear voice sounded. Rumble. The city gate made a heavy sound as it was slowly pushed open. The small merchants and peddlers who had been waiting outside for a long time were about to rush in with their wooden carts. The carts were filled with vegetables, chickens, ducks, and other things. They were all goods that these merchants relied on to make a living. Wait! An extremely imposing roar sounded from within the city gates, followed by the sounds of horse hooves and armor. Several groups of soldiers wearing the same type of armor as those on the city walls rushed out from within the city gates under the lead of several mounted officers, blocking these merchants outside the city gates. Sir, what are you doing? The merchant in front was an old man who was pulling a cart of vegetables. The vegetables on the cart were abnormally fresh, and there were even some sparkling dewdrops hanging on the leaves. This little one has to deliver vegetables to Master Wang in the western part of the city. He wants to entertain guests today. If this little one's vegetables aren't fresh and miss the master's feast, this little one can't bear the responsibility. Shut up. The officer in front of the horse scolded, then raised his head and said, "This official is under the orders of the Ministry of War. From today onwards, this official will guard the East Gate. Everyone coming in and out must be inspected by this official." Sir, inspect what? This little one passes through the East Gate every day to sell chickens and ducks at the market in the eastern part of the city. If you don't believe me, you can ask the old guard at the gate. Behind the old merchant, the middle-aged man pushing the cart of chickens and ducks was somewhat dissatisfied. Even the chickens and ducks on the cart started to quack. For a moment, the entire area outside the East Gate was in chaos. "Pa, all of you, shut up." The officer waved the horsewhip in his hand and said angrily, "Right now, we are at war. For the safety of our Bronze Pillar country, and for your safety, the Ministry of War has ordered that not only the East Gate, but also the other 3 gates of the capital city. Maybe there are spies from the enemy countries among you. Is there a weapon hidden in your vegetables?" "Io, sir." The old man's expression changed drastically as he hurriedly shouted, "Take a look for yourself. This little one is a native of the Bronze Pillar country. How could I possibly do something that would let down the Bronze Pillar country?" "That's right, sir. This war isn't just a matter of a day or two. It's already been hundreds of days. What does it have to do with us? I heard that the Jiang country was already exterminated by the king. Who dares to go against my Bronze Pillar country? What is it? You don't even dare to let me check?" The officer looked at the noisy crowd and laughed sinisterly. "Instead of saying so much here, I've already checked it." "Sir." The old man in front of him smiled bitterly. "It's not that this little one doesn't dare to let you check, but the problem is that this little one's vegetables—" "All right, sir, please be gentle with them, just like how you treat your own wife. Okay? This is all copper coins. Shut up for lousy." The officer waved the horsewhip in his hand, but he was only threatening him and did not really whip him. Then, he ordered the soldiers beside him, "Quickly go and check. Don't let go of the suspect." "Yes." The group of soldiers responded and rushed into the crowd like wolves and tigers. These soldiers were not as kind as the officers. Immediately, the sound of chickens crowing and dogs barking could be heard. The seemingly fresh vegetables turned into ruins in a moment. The old man at the side was distressed to protect them, but he was not as strong as the soldiers. After the soldiers checked randomly, they waved their hands and let him pass. They then rushed behind the old man. The old man was about to cry and stood there without moving. When the officer saw the old man blocking the city gate, he frowned and shouted, "Old man, why aren't you hurrying to deliver the vegetables? Although this dish is a bit messy, it doesn't affect its consumption. Even if Master Wang doesn't want it, you can still sell it at the market." "Sigh, sir." The old man said with a sullen face, "Vegetables can be sold at the market for 30 copper coins. This little one woke up so early to give them to Master Wang. He was kind enough to give this little one 33 copper coins. Today, this little one has messed up Master Wang's matter, so don't think about sending food to him in the future. It's only 3 copper coins. Why are you complaining again? Look at how you're blocking the people behind you." A young officer at the side roared and was about to wave the horsewhip in his hand. "Stop!" The middle-aged officer shouted and stopped the young officer's recklessness. He took out a few copper coins and threw it to the old man. "We're guarding here for the safety of our Copper Pillar state. There are many people entering the city, so we can't treat them as gently as we treat our wives. This is Lousy's compensation for you. Take it and quickly scram into the city. Don't block the way. Go and tell that so-called Master Wang that the vegetables today were ruined by Lieutenant Situ Ming. If he respects Lousy, then you won't be in trouble. If he looks down on Lousy, then Lousy can't do anything about it." "Yes, yes." The old farmer beamed with joy. He quickly picked up the few copper coins scattered on the cart and stuffed them into his pocket. Then, he hurriedly pushed his small cart and rushed into the city gate. "Lieutenant Situ." The officer at the side didn't understand. Although the old farmer's vegetables were messed up and damaged, they can still be sold at the market after peeling off the leaves and sprinkling some water on them. It's only 3 copper coins. He's obviously... Without waiting for the officer to finish, Lieutenant Situ waved his hand and said, "No need to say more. It's just 3 copper coins. To you and me, it's pocket money. To this old farmer, it's just a day's worth of food. Giving it to a beggar is also giving it to him. At least he won't be blocking the city gate." "Yes, Lieutenant is wise," the young officer complimented, and then looked at the mess outside the city gate. He whispered, "Lieutenant, what's going on today? Why did the Ministry of War suddenly want us to guard the 4 gates? Aren't there still 4 military commanders above the 4 gates? They have strong soldiers and strong horses. What kind of situation have they not seen before? Furthermore, when the army left the country and my king personally led the army, the capital city wasn't so vigilant. Could it be that something happened?" This, Lieutenant Situ hesitated slightly. He raised his eyes and looked to the left. Other than the 2 of them, there was no one else. He whispered, "Gaopeng, this is only for me to tell you. You can't say a word to anyone else." "Lieutenant Situ, don't worry. Don't you know what kind of character I have?" When the young man named Gaopeng heard this, his eyes lit up. He lowered his head and whispered a reply. Lieutenant Situ nodded. "Actually, it's not considered a secret. Furthermore, it's been almost 100 days. Although the 6 ministries in the imperial court requested for it to be kept a secret, paper can't hide fire. Even if I don't say it today, you will know sooner or later." Lieutenant Situ's words made Gaopeng's heart itch even more. He anxiously asked, "What secret? You actually want me to personally investigate the people who enter the capital city?" "The Grand Tutor is dead." Lieutenant Situ accidentally looked to the left and whispered, "Ah? What? The Grand Tutor?" Gaopeng was indeed still a young man. His eyes flashed with an expression of disbelief as he cried out in surprise, "Do you want to die?" Lieutenant Situ raised his hand and covered Gaopeng's mouth that was beside his ear. He angrily said, "If you want to die, don't implicate me." "Lieutenant, Lieutenant," Gaopeng hurriedly apologized and lowered his voice. "It's all my fault. It's not that I was careless. This news, cough cough, it's really too shocking. The Grand Tutor's divine abilities are incomparable. He's already an immortal on the land. How is this possible?" Not bad. You still have some knowledge. You didn't ask me if the Grand Tutor died of illness." Lieutenant Situ nodded slightly and seemed to be praising him. Gaopeng smiled and said, "I'm just too surprised. I'm not brainless. Anyone who thinks about it, with the Grand Tutor's divine abilities and today's battle formation, how could he have died of illness?" -12. Chapter 3546. Commandant Situ had obviously been asked this question before, so he nodded his head in distress. "That's the problem. How did the Imperial Advisor die?" Previously, the Imperial Advisor had single-handedly gone deep into Jianghua and killed the Imperial Advisor. And today, Jianghua's revenge? Gaopeng immediately understood. His face immediately became vigilant, his eyes looking at the commotion outside the city gate. He nodded and said, "If that's the case, then we must guard the 4 gates, assist the admiral and the rest in interrogating the villagers, and strictly prevent the remnants of the Jiang country from entering the capital to cause trouble." That's right. Commandant Situ replied with a smile, then said mysteriously, "However, this old man feels that the Ministry of War is making a mountain out of a molehill. It's purely taking off your pants to fart." Gaopeng was tactful and hurriedly smiled. This subordinate is willing to listen to Sir's wise opinion. Number 1. An expert who can kill the Imperial Preceptor. How can we see him? How could he possibly mix in with such vulgar villagers? Commandant Situ proudly pointed with his finger. "Do you think there will be one here?" "Of course not." Gaopeng suddenly realized. Those are all immortal-level characters. How could they possibly enter from the city gate? "What about the second, my lord?" "The second?" Commandant Situ laughed. "Naturally, it's someone who can enter from the city gate." "Then, who is that?" Gaopeng did not understand. Commandant Situ said again, "Those who can enter from the city gate are naturally the remnants of the Jiang country." Gaoming nodded. Indeed. But the problem is," Commandant Situ said again, If the Jiang country found an expert to kill the imperial advisor, the Jiang country would definitely be recruiting troops and expanding their power. How could the Jiang country develop their power to the capital of our Copper Pillar nation? Yeah, that's true. Gaopeng suddenly realized and then asked again, but what if it wasn't the Jiang country who asked someone to kill the imperial advisor? If not, why would we guard the four gates and interrogate the villagers? Oh, that's right. Gaopeng nodded even more. Sir is right. It seems like we don't need to come at all. But the question is, why would the Ministry of War give such a brainless order? Lieutenant Situ smiled and pointed at his own head. You'll have to use your brain. Think about it. Even the imperial preceptor had fallen. How could the monarch not be furious? What about the 6 divisions? Don't you have to show that you're busy? Don't you have to show your existence? Don't you have to show your attitude? I understand. So, even if you want to fart, you must take off your pants. It means that you're really farting. Gaopeng laughed, but just as he was laughing, his eyebrows twitched slightly. He looked into the distance and said in a low voice, Sir, look over there. After the villagers who entered the city, oh? Colonel Situ was stunned. He raised his eyes and followed Gaopeng's gaze. His eyes flashed with doubt. In just a short moment, more people had gathered at the east gate. As this was the first time they were conducting an interrogation, Colonel Situ's subordinates were obviously not familiar with it. Few people were let off, and many were left behind. Behind these people stood 4 men. These 4 men were not tall, and if they were standing on the ground, they might not be able to see anything strange. However, Colonel Situ and Gaopeng were riding on horses, so they could see the difference between the 4 men at a glance. Most of the people who woke up early were farmers or peddlers in the suburbs. These 4 men were obviously dressed as warriors. In the middle of the 4 men was a young scholar dressed in white Confucian robes. If it was just this, it wouldn't have attracted Gaopeng's attention. What made Gaopeng and Colonel Situ frown was that this scholar's gaze was flickering. He looked at the soldiers who were conducting the interrogation and seemed to want to leave. However, in just a short while, more people pushing carts came from all around them, blocking them and making it difficult for them to advance or retreat. What was special was that when Colonel Situ's gaze landed on the scholar clearly shifted his gaze and looked elsewhere. He even swept a few glances at the top of the city wall. Colonel Situ and Gaopeng were sent to the east gate to guard the interrogation. Of course, they were people who didn't care about sand in their eyes. Seeing this, how could they not know that there was definitely something wrong with this scholar? Colonel Situ raised his eyebrows, and Gaopeng immediately understood. He slightly spurred his horse and left from where he was, slowly entering the city gate. It was obvious that he was going to inform the general on the city wall. Colonel Situ jumped down from his horse and slightly tightened his grip on the horsewhip in his hand. He was about to remove the weapon from the hook beside the saddle. At this moment, a slightly impatient voice rang out from behind him. What are you all doing? Why aren't you all moving aside? Colonel Situ was stunned and hurriedly turned his head to look. He saw that within the city gate, there were 2 children in embroidered clothes. The one in front had a thin figure, and the one behind was slightly chubby. However, both of them had skin as white as jade and eyes as bright as stars. With one look, one could tell that they weren't ordinary people. And behind them, there was another thin scholar in scholarly robes. He held a folding fan in his left hand and a scroll in his right hand. He shook his head as he read and slowly walked towards Colonel Situ. And the impatient voice came from the child in front of him. Hurry up and move aside. Don't block my family's young master's path. Which family's young master is this? Colonel Situ was stunned. Just as he was muttering in his heart, the 2 children were already in front of him. Colonel Situ didn't dare to delay and hurriedly moved aside. There were many high-ranking officials and dignitaries in the capital of the Bronze Pillar country. Naturally, he couldn't recognize all of them. Furthermore, he didn't receive any orders to interrogate people who left the city, so naturally, he wouldn't stop them. Oh, what's going on? Walking to the city gate, the scholar shifted his gaze away from the scroll and looked at the commotion at the city gate in confusion. He frowned and asked. The thin child in front of him hurriedly said, Young master, this is called entering the city to interrogate, and check if there's anything wrong with the people entering the city. Oh, so that's how it is. That scholar's gaze indifferently swept over the faces of Officer Situ, the surrounding soldiers, and the nearby villagers. Then, without stopping, he continued to walk out of the city gates at a neither fast nor slow pace. Seeing that the scholar didn't even know what an interrogation was, Colonel Situ knew that he couldn't afford to offend this scholar. Or rather, this scholar had nothing to do with him. Thus, he raised his hand and took down his Damascus steel spear from his horse, preparing to follow behind the scholar. In the distance, the scholar in the crowd clearly saw Colonel Situ and Gao Peng's actions and knew that things weren't going well. A trace of panic appeared on his face. He turned his head and was about to lead the four martial artists out of the crowd. However, the scholar raised his head and looked at the spear and sword on the city wall. Hesitation appeared in his eyes again. It was at this moment that the scholar who came out of the city happened to walk to his left. The scholar's eyes turned and he hurriedly squeezed out of the pile of carriages and called out, "Brother Su, Brother Su, I'm here." The one who came out of the city was naturally Xiao Hua. He brought Lui and Wang Bianfei out of the Black Cloud Ridge and didn't directly fly to the Jade Mountain. Instead, he made a turn and landed in the Bronze Pillar country. He had some things he wanted to ask Zhaixing Lu's Zhuqing. Unfortunately, Zhuqing was no longer in the Bronze Pillar country. As for where Zhaixing Lu went, the new manager didn't know. Thus, Xiao Hua waited for a few days and participated in a small auction last night before preparing to leave for the Jade Mountain. Of course, with Xiao Hua's current cultivation, he no longer changed his appearance. He didn't know if the Bronze Pillar country knew of his arrival, or if they knew and didn't dare to make a sound. In short, Xiao Hua very smoothly brought the two children out of the Bronze Pillar country's capital at daybreak. As for why Xiao Hua was dressed in scholarly robes and had the two children call him young master, it was purely on a whim. It was like Yu Zhongquan's so-called study tour. Xiao Hua saw a scholar in embroidered clothes squeeze out of the crowd entering the city and wanted to pull him back. Moreover, the scholar even called him Brother Su. At first, he was somewhat astonished, but when he saw the scholar's slightly panicked appearance and the weapon in Commandant Situ's hands behind him, he couldn't help but laugh in his heart and let the scholar grab his scholarly robes. Sure enough, when the scholar saw that Xiao Hua didn't reveal any doubt or disgust, he was overjoyed and called out, "Brother Su." This little brother waited outside the city for an entire night. Didn't we agree to go to Jingling Mountain last night? If you leave the city now, how will you be able to see the sunrise? As the scholar spoke, he winked at Xiao Hua, as if reminding Xiao Hua not to expose him. Xiao Hua smiled and said in a clear voice, "Brother Lang, it's not that this little one didn't go last night. This little one suddenly had an important matter at home, and this little one had no choice. Today, as soon as the city gates opened, this little one hurriedly came out. Wasn't it precisely to apologize to Brother Lang?" AI, don't talk about apologizing. The scholar took advantage of the situation to pull Xiao Hua's sleeve and walk outside. You'd better think about how to explain it to Miss Ling Hua. You've already stood her up twice in a row. Forgive me, Xiao Hua said with a smile. It seems this little one wants to be the host and bring a bramble to ask for forgiveness. As they spoke, the two people very affectionately left. Louis naturally wasn't surprised. He pulled the somewhat dazed Wang Yifei and walked in front, while the four men protected them at the back. Commandant Situ naturally stood in the distance, somewhat uncertain. However, seeing Xiao Hua's calm appearance, he didn't seem to be faking it, so he didn't chase after him. As for above the city wall, when Gao Peng looked down again, Xiao Hua and the scholar had already walked far away. The scholar pulled Xiao Hua for no less than half the time it took to eat a meal. Only then did he slightly tilt his head to see if there was anyone chasing behind him. Afterwards, he let go of Xiao Hua's hand, but he saw that there were still some sweat stains on Xiao Hua's sleeve. It was clearly from the scholar's hand when he was nervous. Xiao Hua looked up and down and cupped his hands, saying, "Brother, the city gates are already far away. Presumably those soldiers already can't see us. This one still has some matters to attend to, so forgive me for not seeing you off. Goodbye." That scholar saw that Xiao Hua didn't drag on and didn't ask him why he suddenly pulled him back. He hurriedly returned the greeting and said with a smile, "Brother, you've misunderstood. This one isn't afraid of any soldiers, but there's some misunderstanding with them. Hee, this one understands." Xiaohua also smiled and said again, "Goodbye." -12. Chapter 35:47. Finished speaking, Xiaohua began to walk. The scholar opened his mouth, seemingly wanting to say something to thank Xiaohua, but seeing Xiaohua's carefree appearance, he didn't say anything in the end. However, just as Xiaohua took 2 steps, he heard one of the 4 strong men behind him hurriedly whisper into the scholar's ear, "Young master, I'm afraid it won't be easy for you and me to enter the city today. The person young master is meeting is still waiting in the city. We can naturally go, but wouldn't that make people unhappy? Young master, why don't you ask this young master to bring you into the city?" The strong man emphasized the word "please," causing Xiaohua to frown. However, Xiaohua pretended not to hear. He raised the scroll in his hand and shook his head while reading. Confucius said, "Shun is filial, virtuous as a saint, respected as the son of heaven, rich in the 4 seas. Ancestral temples reward him, descendants protect him. Thus, virtuous people must obtain their position, their wealth, their fame, and their longevity. Thus, creatures of heaven must be valued because of their talents. Those who plant them nurture them, those who topple them overturn them." The poem said, "Jia Lu is a gentleman, constitutionalist and virtuous, suitable for the people, receiving blessings from heaven. Bless and protect those who are blessed by heaven. Thus, virtuous people must receive orders." Xiaohua had only walked a few feet when the scholar hurriedly caught up with him, even though his face was filled with displeasure. He said loudly, "Young master, please wait. Young master is really in a good mood. You're still reading The Doctrine of the Mean when you're out for a field trip. This young master really admires you. It's just that, does young master have any thoughts about these lines? This young master had some thoughts when I was reading them that day. I don't know if I can share them with young master." "Oh, is that so? Young master actually has some brilliant ideas?" Xiaohua stood still, turned around, and asked with a smile that wasn't a smile, "Then this student would like to ask young master about this line. Thus, virtuous people must obtain their position, their wealth, their fame, and their longevity. Thus, creatures of heaven must be valued because of their talents. Those who plant them nurture them, those who topple them overturn them. Is there any other meaning?" When the scholar saw that Xiaohua had taken the bait, he smiled and said, "The meaning of this sentence isn't anything special, but it means that a person of great virtue must obtain the position that he should obtain in this world." After hearing what the scholar had said, Xiaohua smiled and said, "Indeed, a virtuous person should be like this. However, if it's a person without virtue, as mentioned in the 27th volume of Yu Shi Ming Yu, he would definitely have evil retribution, right? Yu Shi Ming Yin, Volume 27? The scholar stared blankly for a moment, clearly not understanding. After a moment, he seemed to have thought of something, and his face turned pale. He bit his lip and cupped his hands, saying, "This young one understands. Young master's help just now has made this young one very grateful. This young one does not dare to ask for more. It's best to correct your mistakes." Xiaohua nodded slightly, no longer paying attention to the scholar. He waved his hand and left. However, as soon as he left, the burly man hurried over with an angry look. He urged, "Young master, why are you so hesitant? In the end, is refinement more important, or is the master more important?" The young master pondered for a moment, stamped his feet again, and hurriedly chased after Xiaohua. He shouted, "Brother, this young one has a presumptuous request. I don't know if it's possible. Since it's a presumptuous request, then don't say it." Xiaohua did not stop walking, nor did he turn his head as he said indifferently, "AI, brother, if this young one was not forced to this point, I would not be so humble." The scholar's face turned purple, but he still chased after him and sighed, "This young one does not have any special request. I just want to ask young master to bring this young one into the city." Xiaohua stopped, looked at the scholar, and said word by word, "Although this young one does not know what brother wants to do, Since you are hiding from the soldiers, it must be somewhat difficult to meet people. This young one can indeed bring brother into the city, but if something happens, it will inevitably bring disaster to this young one, and even this young one's family. Brother can think for your family. Why can't this young one think for my family? Brother has no reason to drag this young one into the water. This young one has already taken a risk to help brother. There is no need for brother to keep relying on this young one, right? This. The scholar's face turned even redder from Xiaohua's words. He stuttered for a long time, not knowing how to persuade Xiaohua. The quick-wittedness he had when he pulled Xiaohua at the city gate had long disappeared. That brat you! A burly man was anxious and shouted, "If you continue to be so long-winded, do you believe that I will cut off your head?" "I believe," Xiaohua said coldly. "Young master, the nobles of the Copper Pillar State are all good people. This scholar must be the son of a noble. It is not right for us to take him." Another burly man said in a low voice, "Put a knife to his neck. He dares not to bring us into the city." "That's right." The scholar clenched his teeth and said, "The Copper Pillar State sent troops to secretly kill me. Dozens of them, and even captured father. This student and the Copper Pillar State's blood feud is absolutely irreconcilable. Since this scholar is the son of a noble, he is also this student's enemy. Wang Jin, this young one is here. What orders does young master have?" The burly man hurriedly replied. The scholar pointed at Xiaohua and said, Take him." However, the scholar looked at Xiaohua's starry eyes and the disdain on his face. In the end, the scholar did not give the order. He sighed heavily and waved his hand, saying, "Wang Jin, let's go. Our ancestors have said that the heavens must be clear, the human relations must be clear, and the holy words must be spoken. Although my family has declined, I cannot break the teachings of my ancestors." Finished speaking, the scholar did not order anyone else, and turned to walk towards the city gate. However, he only took a dozen steps before hesitating. He looked left and right, not knowing if he should enter the city or not. Xiaohua smiled. This scholar could not be considered pedantic. At most, he was a soft-hearted person. He did not have his own opinions, nor was he the kind of person who would place his own benefits above others' losses. It seemed that he really did have something important to do in the city, but unfortunately, the Copper Pillar State had increased the inspection of the city gate. After thinking for a moment, Xiaohua said in a clear voice, "Brother, aren't you too pedantic? If you can't enter the East Gate, why can't you go to the West Gate, South Gate, or North Gate? If you go in and out openly, who would stop a scholar?" "Io, that's right." The scholar slapped his forehead and came to his senses. "If the East Gate is exposed, you can still enter from the North Gate. Why must you hang yourself on a tree?" "Many thanks, brother." The scholar hurriedly bowed as if to thank Xiaohua. Unexpectedly, Xiaohua did not even look at him. Instead, he waved his hand, and a several zhang-long carriage landed on the road. This carriage was maroon in color, and there were many fine inscriptions carved on it. As the inscriptions flashed, a large amount of clouds appeared under the carriage. The scholar stared blankly, somewhat unable to believe his eyes. After all, he had used the clear eyes technique to check Xiaohua's cultivation, but he did not see any signs of cultivation at all. Looking at Xiaohua again, he waved his hand again. A bright white light flashed, and a monster that looked like a horse but was not a horse appeared in front of the carriage. Xiaohua floated up the carriage, and the two boys, Lu Yi and Wang Yifei, also jumped behind the shaft of the carriage. Xiaohua slapped the shaft of the carriage, and the inscriptions on the shaft flashed, and a mist wrapped around the monster like a rain. Harumph! The monster raised its head and roared a few times. Its four hooves flipped, and a pile of light feathers appeared on its back. As the light feathers flapped, the monster flew up into the air, and the carriage was also pulled by the monster into the sky. This. The scholar was at a loss for words again. After a moment, he came to his senses and hurriedly bowed. "This junior has offended you. I hope senior can forgive me." Unfortunately, Xiaohua's Pegasus was very fast. In the blink of an eye, it had already flown out 100 feet. The scholar's voice was slightly lower with shame, so Xiaohua might not be able to hear it. Not to mention the scholar's shame, Even the four brawny men showed extreme fear in their eyes. They did not expect that the scholar they had schemed against for a long time was actually someone they could not afford to offend. Pegasus? This is a Pegasus. Suddenly, one of the brawny men came to his senses and hurriedly shouted, "Isn't this the Pegasus that young master saw at the auction in Jiaxinglu last year?" That's right, that's right. The scholar was also surprised. The fierce winds in the sky were unable to blow Lu Yi and Wang Yifei. -12. Chapter 35-48. Hearing Lu Yi's confusion, Xiao Hua smiled and said, "There are too many injustices in this world. As long as there are people, there will definitely be injustices. However, these injustices don't necessarily have to be taken care of. These injustices don't necessarily have to become fairness. Under the heavenly Tao, fairness and unfairness are normal. There is no such thing as absolute fairness. Take this scholar, for example. He has the ability to solve his own problems and has people helping him. Why should this old man interfere? What's more, this scholar did not mention his name from the beginning to the end. Although this is a way to protect himself, deep down, he doesn't trust this old man at all. So why should this old man help him? Also, just from this scholar's actions, he might not be any more honorable than Commandant Situ, who guards the gate. In this old man's opinion, Commandant Situ's heart is filled with sympathy. Guarding the gate is 100 times better than this scholar. Although this old man is the enemy of Copper Pillar State, helping this scholar without any reason is going against this old man's conscience. Xiao Hua said, and then told the story of Commandant Situ giving the vegetable farmer the copper coins. Lu Yi and Wang Bianfei fell into deep thought when they heard this. That's right, master. What is written in the 27th volume of Yu Shi Ming Yin? When you said it, that scholar's expression immediately changed. Wang Bianfei asked curiously, "That's a story about ungrateful people." Xiao Hua smiled and said, "Presumably, that scholar has read it." However, the scholar's last words, "Understand the heavens, understand human relations, speak the holy words, understand the world." Which great scholar said this? Although this old man doesn't dare to say that he has read all of the classics, he has seen most of them. How come I have never seen them in the Jade Eyes? This scholar's origin is somewhat strange. After saying this, Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "No need to mention that scholar. This old man has already told you the location of Qinyu Mountain. You can ride the Pegasus and slowly go there. You can go there in 3 or 4 days." Leading the two boys and identifying the direction was probably what Xiao Hua wanted them to do the most, right? "Yes, master." Louis obediently replied and didn't ask any more questions. However, Wang Bianfei was different. He smiled and said, "Master, the Jade Mountain in front of us is only a few thousand miles away. This Pegasus can probably reach it within a day and a night. Why do you need 3 to 4 days? It's clearly a trap. Why are you in such a hurry to jump into it?" Xiao Hua laughed. "Let the monarch of Bronze Pillar Country be anxious for a few days." After he finished speaking, Xiao Hua picked up the scroll again and glanced at it. He sighed with emotion and said, "This Confucian cultivator is really amazing. Reading a scroll is definitely not the same thing as exploring the Jade Eyes. From this scroll, not only can I read the meaning of Confucian cultivation, I can also sense the awe-inspiring qi gushing out between the lines. If you deliberately comprehend the awe-inspiring qi between heaven and earth and feel that it is incomparably majestic, this kind of cultivation method is much easier than my Tao sect's qi refining. What this old man doesn't understand the most is that this Confucian cultivator's true qi doesn't simply fall into the middle dantian. That true qi will also spread between heaven and earth and fuse with the awe-inspiring qi. Every Confucian cultivator will send out their true qi. In every era, more true qi will appear. No wonder the awe-inspiring qi in the hidden immortal continent is increasingly mellow and rich. It even has the precipitation of time. Once a Confucian cultivator is useful, this awe-inspiring qi will immediately obey his command. Isn't this similar to the inheritance of Yao cultivators? Master said it so mysteriously. This little one also wants to practice Confucian cultivation. Louis sat in front of Xiao Hua and said with a smile, Xiaohua smiled and said, "That's not necessary. Our Tao sect's cultivation method is also extraordinary. Even our methods and divine abilities are more powerful. As long as you cultivate to the extreme, you can also achieve the effect of myriad streams returning to the origin. Moreover, if you want to cultivate secret techniques outside of Tao sect, you might as well refer to Buddhism." Yes, this disciple understands. This disciple was just joking. Louis nodded. Then, he looked at Wang Bianfei, who was sitting beside him, holding a talisman brush and fiddling with some talisman paper. He said with a wry smile, "This disciple's talent is stupid. Compared to junior brother, this disciple is far inferior. In the future, I will be satisfied if I can achieve 10% of master's achievements." Senior brother, Wang Bianfei raised his head and said with a smile, "You are talking to master. Why are you talking about this little brother for no reason? Everyone's fate is different. Who knows who can go further?" Xiaohua said with a smile, "Your talent is 100 times better than this old man's. As long as you put your heart into the Tao of heaven and cultivate bitterly, you will definitely be able to reach the realm of enlightenment. Senior brother, please wait a moment." Wang Bianfei faintly smiled and spread out the talisman paper. After thinking for a bit, the talisman brush moved. In a moment, a vivid image of a person appeared on the talisman paper. That person's face was somewhat distressed and also somewhat envious. It looked very lively. Haha. Just as he finished drawing, Wang Bianfei laughed. Wasn't this person Luyi's appearance just now? Junior brother. Luyi's face was somewhat red. He reached out and snatched the talisman paper. He said angrily, "I was just envious of you. You still have. Io, junior brother. You can actually draw yellow talismans?" "Oh, is that so?" Xiaohua was also slightly stunned. He had taught Wang Bianfei the art of talisman making, but it was only the most rudimentary. It was even different from the yellow talismans he made. After all, Wang Bianfei didn't have any true qi and didn't know how to use true qi. "Master, look," Louis said with a sad face, "I am your senior brother. How can I suddenly fall behind so many junior brothers? Just now, when this little one wanted to tear this portrait, I clearly felt the fluctuation of magic power on this talisman paper." Xiaohua smiled as he took the talisman paper. He scanned it with his divine sense. Sure enough, between the lines of this portrait, there was a faint condensation of heaven and earth spiritual energy. Although it still couldn't be compared to yellow talismans, it was still able to condense true qi using talisman brush, talisman ink, and talisman paper. This was the most fundamental improvement. Genius. After all, you're a genius. Xiaohua was somewhat speechless. He looked at Wang Bianfei's slightly uneasy appearance and said with a smile, "Correct, Bianfei, you can already draw yellow talismans. Right. How's the progress of your qi refinement technique?" Disciple has already reached the peak of the first level of qi refinement. Perhaps within a day or two, I can break through to the second level of qi refinement. Wang Bianfei didn't dare to conceal anything. Under the ecstasy in his heart, he honestly replied. Xiaohua nodded. He understood. For the first 4 levels of qi refinement, the disciples of ordinary cultivation sects would generally reach the first level in a year. Wang Bianfei's speed couldn't be considered too shocking. After thinking for a moment, Xiaohua indifferently said, "Correct. Don't be in a hurry to break through to the first level of qi refinement. Stay at the peak of the first level for a few more days and comprehend the mysteries within." "Yes, disciple understands," Wang Bianfei hastily replied. Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, "You have a talent that's superior to others in the field of painting. I'm afraid that this Tao of talismans is destined to be stronger than others. However, what this old man is going to teach you now is still the most common, or perhaps the most common talisman crafting techniques. You should first practice and focus on comprehending the wonders of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. To be specific, use your heart as the brush, use your true qi as the ink, and heaven and earth as the canvas. Thread, paint between heaven and earth." Wang Bianfei's eyes lit up all of a sudden, flashing with a rare fanaticism. He almost couldn't restrain his voice as he said in a low voice, "Master, this is precisely this disciple's dream since childhood." Xiaohua said, and returned the portrait to Wang Bianfei. He already understood that his talisman crafting techniques and the Tao of formations should be able to be passed on to Wang Bianfei. Senior brother. Wang Bianfei took the portrait and respectfully handed it to Lu Yi, saying, "This is the first work of this little brother that contains true qi in this life. I respectfully offer it to senior brother. I hope that senior brother can cherish it." Good. Louis smiled. Although he was somewhat envious in his heart, he was more happy. Taking the portrait with both hands, Louis carefully put it away in his bosom. "Louis, how's your cultivation?" Xiaohua asked again. "This old man brought you out to give you pointers. If this foundation isn't laid properly, it will be difficult in the future. In the past, this old man spent countless thoughts in order to consolidate his Tao foundation. I would rather not step into the second level of qi refinement. Fortunately, Zhang Qingxiao and Xiao Xinrui weren't here. Otherwise, after hearing Xiao Hua's words, they would have immediately fallen from the flying carriage. It wasn't that he didn't want to advance, it was that he couldn't advance no matter what. Yes, this disciple understands. The foundation is more important than anything else. This disciple will definitely follow Master's words. Lu Yi and Wang Bianfei respectfully replied. Although Lu Yi had met Xiaohua earlier and also came into contact with qi refinement techniques earlier, he awakened his spirit later than Wang Bianfei. His aptitude was also a bit worse than Wang Bianfei's. Although he had already stepped into the first level of qi refinement, there was still a distance from the so-called peak. After Xiaohua asked, he gave them some pointers and let them comprehend it themselves. Xiaohua's own cultivation was mostly done by himself. Therefore, he was also the same when teaching disciples. He only told them the techniques and comprehensions, and later let them figure it out themselves. Perhaps this was the legendary like teacher, like disciple? Xiaohua naturally didn't need to worry about the heavenly horse. It spread its wings and slowly flew in the sky, looking so carefree. Xiaohua's divine sense swept over. Seeing nothing strange, he sent his consciousness into the space. The green-robed Xiaohua had already returned from the nascent soul in his lower dantian to the space. He was sitting cross-legged in the sky, facing the shabby immortal execution stage. Strands of lightning fell from the immortal execution stage and entered the green-robed Xiaohua's body. Seeing this, Jade Archive Xiaohua was somewhat baffled. "Fellow Taoist, please." Jade Archive Xiaohua cupped his hands and said, "I don't know what fellow Taoist is doing. Do our techniques have this kind of secret cultivation technique?" "Fellow Taoist." The green-robed Xiaohua opened his eyes and said in a low voice, "All techniques are created by someone. Isn't fellow Taoist's foundation establishment technique also created by yourself? Why can't I figure out a cultivation technique by myself? Relying on this lightning to temper the body? It doesn't seem to be a secret technique." Jade Archive Xiaohua was somewhat bewildered. Sigh, the green-robed Xiaohua stood up, and the lightning disappeared. He sighed and said, "Fellow Taoist doesn't know. I discovered a secret while I was controlling my nascent soul." -12. Chapter 3549. Yes, I know this. It should be the secret of the 5 qi righteous thunder. Jade Archive Xiaohua nodded. This secret was also a big question in his heart. Green-robed Xiaohua said again, "Yes. Now, my nascent soul can already condense its body and condense its Tao foundation in the 5 qi righteous thunder. But I have doubts again. Why can the 5 qi righteous thunder condense the nascent soul's body and let it grow quickly? But why can't the lightning produced by the immortal execution stage in my space? Even the lightning tribulation and so on that fellow Taoist experienced before. Also can't?" Jade Archive Xiaohua touched his nose and said with a bitter smile, "This heavenly thunder looks the same, but I'm afraid it's divided into many types. I remember before in Star Picking Tower, didn't I also hear about heavenly thunder and earthly thunder? Gung Xin metal thunder, Shinyu metal thunder, Jia Yi wood thunder, Bing Ding fire thunder, and Wu Ji earth thunder. The 5 qi righteous thunder might be different from the lightning tribulation and other heavenly thunder, right?" "Not necessarily." Green-robed Xiaohua stretched out his hand and made a grabbing motion in the air. A ball of lightning appeared in his palm. The lightning flashed and countless mysteries were annihilated. Even the Jade Archive Xiaohua couldn't see through it with a glance. This poor Taoist knows that the birth of lightning and the destruction of lightning is the beginning of life. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth is also born along with the lightning strikes. However, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth seems to be dead, or it could be said that it is lifeless. It doesn't have the vitality of heaven and earth like the noble qi. This is also the difference between my Tao sect's divine ability and Confucian's divine ability. Then why is there life in the righteous qi? It should be related to the 5 qi, right? It should also be related to Confucian's 5 qi unification, right? Yes, Jade Archive Xiaohua naturally understood what green-robed Xiaohua said. He nodded and said, although my Tao sect also pays attention to the 5 elements, Tao sect's 5 elements are all over the world. Confucian's 5 elements are in the body. Since it's in the body, it's alive, not dead. Tao sect emphasizes the 5 elements. Confucian cultivators emphasize the 5 qi. Although they both involve metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, there's an essential difference. Perhaps there's no essential difference, but at the peak of cultivation, there's an essential difference. Green-robed Xiaohua continued, sometimes, the myriad streams may not return to the origin. We haven't obtained the true 5 qi's unification yet, so we can't make a generalization. Jade Archive Xiaohua shook her head. Fellow Taoist, have you ever wondered what the yuan of the 5 qi's unifications is? Is it the yuan of the vital energy of heaven and earth? The yuan of the spirit-slaying vital light? Yuan is the origin of the heavens, the central meaning. When the 5 qis gather in the origin, it means that the 5 qis take the form of auspicious clouds and condense at the top of the head, revealing the supreme divine ability. However, the green-robed Xiaohua shook his head. I also had the same thought before I took control of my nascent soul and received the baptism of the 5 qi's righteous thunder. However, after witnessing the boundless vitality of a nascent soul under the effects of the 5 elements' righteous thunder, I no longer think so. Fellow Taoist, you mean that this yuan is one? Xiaohua frowned, and his eyes flashed with a 5-colored brilliance. That's right. The green-robed Xiaohua nodded. From the perspective of my Taoism, it is Tao begets one. Yuan was life. Life and death. Hiss. Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air. Rumble. The wind and clouds in the entire space began to violently change. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Fellow Taoist, what you said earlier about when the 5 qis gather in the origin, it means that the 5 qis take the form of auspicious clouds and condense at the top of the head, revealing the supreme divine ability, was also explained from the perspective of my Taoism's pursuit of divine ability. The green-robed Xiaohua continued, fellow Taoist, have you ever thought that all the cultivation paths in this world might not necessarily be the pursuit of divine ability, might not necessarily be the pursuit of power, and might not necessarily be the pursuit of longevity? If all of them were like the Taoism's pursuit of power and bravery, wouldn't this world be simple? Would it not be gorgeous and colorful? Fellow Taoist, think again about that little thunder and the insect eggs under our feet. Why haven't they awakened after the separation of yin and yang? That little thunder also awakened after going out and being bombarded by the 5 qis righteous thunder, right? Boom. The entire space seemed to have suddenly turned dark and then suddenly brightened. Xiaohua cried out involuntarily. Could it be that the path of Confucian cultivation is the path of life? The goal of Confucian cultivation, then the mystery of the heavenly book, is not the divine ability to reach the heavens, but the profound life? Now that Confucian cultivation has given birth to 100 schools of thought, did they all cultivate wrongly? Or were they all misunderstood by others? After they annihilated my Taoism, they envied the power of my Taoism's magic and pursued the effects of magic? If so, then it can explain why the noble spirit has vitality and why Exine can't understand the heavenly book even though he has it. If Confucian cultivation is life, then what about death? Xiaohua frowned again. Could it be the Buddhist sect? Death? The green-robed Xiaohua shrugged and laughed. Although the Buddhist sect can interfere with the 6 paths of reincarnation and emphasize reincarnation cultivation, If you say they cultivate the path of death, I don't think so. Only the inside of the space beneath us has the qualifications to say the word death. Then what is the foundation of the Buddhist sect's cultivation? Xiaohua didn't understand. The green-robed Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You have to ask that baldy up there. He recites Buddhist scriptures every day and has already formed a 5th-grade golden lotus. I'm afraid he will soon reach the 9th grade. At that time, even if you don't ask him, Mahavairakana will come to find you and tell you the foundation of the Buddhist sect in person, right? Yes. Xiaohua understood. The Buddhist scriptures and dharma of the exquisite temple were the foundation of the Buddhist sect's cultivation. Moreover, he also knew that the sarira of the Buddhist sect should be the foundation of the Buddhist sect's cultivation. However, he didn't know what the sarira was used for. Although the dark clouds are thick and the night is bleak, the sun and light will always appear. Everything will be revealed one day. Xiaohua raised his head slightly and pointed his finger. The clouds in the sky scattered, and the sky opened. It was a sunny day. The green-robed Xiaohua took a deep breath and said with a smile, "This space is still the best. I can do whatever I want. Being in that nascent soul's body is really suffocating." Fellow Taoist, don't be lazy. Xiaohua stretched and said, "Although our future is bright, we have also provoked a lot of trouble. Lu Yi, Wang Bianfei, Qin Xiaoyao, and the others seem to have a problem with the seal of the spiritual aura sky. We have to hurry up and cultivate." Fine, fine. The green-robed Xiaohua quickly waved his hand. "I was just forced to work by you. I just rested for a moment, and you're noisy again. Why don't you find someone else?" "Who else is there?" Xiaohua smiled bitterly, looked at the sky and said, "Fellow Taoist, heavenly law is like a dream. I can't find his trace. Fellow Taoist, karma is like a huge monster, never listening to us. Fellow Taoist, soul cultivator specializes in guarding the mysterious dark clouds. Fellow Taoist, Longmai controls fate and cultivates different from us. Fellow Taoist, Confucian cultivator is now immersed in the 5 Qis unification and wants to uncover the mystery of Confucian cultivator. Fellow Taoist, Buddhist cultivator, oh, I'm afraid he can't be called fellow Taoist anymore. He should be bitterly cultivating Buddhist Dharma, wanting to achieve Namo Maitreya Buddha. Fellow Taoist Phoenix body is free, but he cultivates heavenly law embodiment technique and heavenly body empowerment technique, so he can't enter the space. Fellow Taoist, do you think I can order him around? Moreover, he is also tempering his bones and practicing the Big Dipper magical fist. That light escape technique is the foundation of our cultivation. There are 10 of us. Can we split it? Alas, fellow Taoist, if you knew this, why didn't you split a few more primordial spirits? The green-robed Xiaohua sighed. How would I know that I can't split my primordial spirit after going through the 3 gold lightning tribulation? Jade Archive Xiaohua shrugged. I thought that I could split it at will in the future, so I didn't think too much about it. However, now that I think about it, I'm afraid that there will be problems no matter how many primordial spirits there are. Not to mention that the Phoenix Dharma body hasn't returned yet. We recently took in a devil spirit as a little brother. Even that bone-tempering fellow Taoist is somewhat unruly. If we can't get along well in the future, I will be in even greater trouble. Forget it. Forget it. You can go. The green-robed Xiaohua waved his hand. I know. That is Shanjun's cultivation method, Jade Talisman refining technique, and especially the teleportation formation you want. I will work hard on it. I won't delay you. After you take out the gold and wood elemental magnetism, you can set up a large formation there. Fellow Taoist nose eyes heart. Jade Archive Xiaohua smiled and cupped his hands. I will go. Oh, don't worry. Before you go out, take a look at Little Yellow. This little guy seems to have some problems. The green-robed Xiaohua seemed to say casually, cupped his hands, and disappeared. Jade Archive Xiaohua was stunned. He waved his hand and saw Little Yellow appear in front of him. Sure enough, as the green-robed Xiaohua said, Little Yellow was somewhat dispirited. Jade Archive Xiaohua muttered to himself, thinking that when Little Yellow went out, it seemed to be like this. When Jade Archive Xiaohua looked carefully, he didn't see anything wrong with Little Yellow. Little Yellow, Jade Archive Xiaohua said. Mother. At this time, Little Yellow woke up from its absent-minded state and answered in surprise. However, it didn't jump into Jade Archive Xiaohua's arms as lively as before. Instead, it swayed its tail slightly, looking very calm. "Are you feeling unwell?" Jade Archive Xiaohua said with a smile. "If there's anything, feel free to tell Mother." "It's nothing." Little Yellow turned its neck in boredom. "Boy just feels bored." "Bored? What do you mean?" Jade Archive Xiaohua didn't understand. "Are you feeling uncomfortable at home?" Or, "Mother," Little Yellow said with some embarrassment. "Home is very good. There is nothing uncomfortable, but because it is too comfortable, it is not as exciting as outside. Moreover, Mother is so awe-inspiring outside, able to kill so many bad people, upholding justice, seeing injustice on the road, pulling out a sword to help. Boy can't be like Mother." Ah. Jade Archive Xiaohua was dumbfounded. He looked at Little Yellow in disbelief and asked curiously, Where did you know about Mother? Do you know what upholding justice is? Pulling out a sword to help when seeing injustice on the road?" "Mother." Little Yellow swayed its tail and seemed to be smiling. "This is all from Wang Bianfei." "What? Wang Bianfei?" Jade Archive Xiaohua was even more dumbfounded. When did you see him?" "Oh, not good." -12. Chapter 3550. Suddenly, Jade Archive Xiaohua seemed to understand something. He sent Wang Bianfei into the space and sealed the space around Wang Bianfei, but he didn't forget what kind of person Wang Bianfei was. He was the most dreamer in the world. In this guy's dream, he seemed to be able to see Little Yellow in Little Yellow's dream. Thinking for a moment, Jade Archive Xiaohua lovingly asked, "What do you think?" "Boy wants to leave home and go out to sea," Little Yellow said without hesitation, as if he had been thinking about it for a long time, and now he finally had a chance to say it. However, looking at Little Yellow's pitiful appearance, his little claws slightly clasped together, as if he was afraid of angering Jade Archive Xiaohua. Jade Archive Xiaohua didn't get angry, he just remained silent for a long time. He didn't regret sending Wang Bianfei to the space, he just felt a bit of pain in his heart. He was reluctant to part with Wang Bianfei. Jade Archive Xiaohua had always treated Wang Bianfei as his own child, a child that would never grow up. Naturally, Wang Bianfei hadn't changed much after so many years. However, he didn't expect that this child would finally grow up, spread his wings and fly high, and create his own world. The reluctance in Jade Archive Xiaohua's heart was the kind of joy and reluctance of a parent. "Mother, don't be angry," Little Yellow whispered. "Boy knows that if Boy isn't here, Mother will definitely miss him. Boy guarantees that Boy is just going out to sea, and will be back soon." AI. Jade Archive Xiaohua sighed and asked, "What about Little Black? What does he think?" "Little Black. He also wants to go out, but he said he will listen to Mother. Mother doesn't want him to go, so he won't go," Little Yellow honestly replied. He also said that to Boy." Haha. Jade Archive Xiaohua laughed. If Little Yellow was a rebellious child, then Little Black was a good boy. So Jade Archive Xiaohua waved his hand, and Little Black appeared in the air. "Father, you came." Little Black was obviously more lively than Little Yellow, circling around Jade Archive Xiaohua. "I heard that you also want to leave home and go out to take a look?" Xiaohua extended his hand, and Little Yellow and Little Black both landed in his hand as he lovingly asked. "Yes, Goldie said that the outside world is very interesting. The boy really wants to see it, but Boy should listen to Mother. In fact, it's also very good to stay at home." Little Black was rather straightforward and spoke very quickly. The Jade Archive Xiaohua nodded and said with a smile, "In the past, it was all Father's fault. Because I loved all of you, I didn't want all of you to come out. Even when Father was in danger, I didn't want all of you to take risks. But you're going to grow up eventually, so it's normal for you to go out and take a look." "All right, I'll listen to Daddy." Little Black seemed to be heartless. Goldie was overjoyed and hurriedly cried out, "Thank you, Mother. Thank you, Mother." "Where's Little Silver?" Jade Archive Xiaohua seemed to think of something and asked. "Little Silver is still young. Why would it leave home?" Little Yellow immediately acted like an elder as he replied. His tone was similar to what Xiaohua had said to him. Jade Archive Xiaohua smiled slightly and waved his hand, and Little Silver also appeared in the air. When Little Silver saw Jade Archive Xiaohua, it immediately stood up in the air and cupped its hands in greeting. It then flew to Little Yellow's side and snuggled up to it. Little Silver, Jade Archive Xiaohua asked, "Your mother is going to leave home. Are you going with her?" "Of course." Little Silver's voice was a little low. "What are you going to do?" Little Yellow scolded. "You stay at home obediently. It won't be too late to go out when you grow up." Boys should listen to mother." Little Silver was very afraid of Little Yellow. Hee hee. Jade Archive Xiaohua smiled and waved his hand. 3 rejuvenation pills appeared out of thin air, and he said, "The 3 of you. Take these?" "Yes, mother." "Yes, father." The 3 little things opened their mouths, and the 3 rejuvenation pills immediately fell into their mouths. Watching the 3 little ones take the rejuvenation pills, Jade Archive Xiaohua pondered for a moment. He indeed had a lot of treasures, but the 3 little ones couldn't use many of them, or rather, it could be said that he didn't know what to give them. "Take a rest after taking the pills," Jade Archive Xiaohua said. Xiaohua of the Jade Archive said, "After a few days, Father will send you out and let you see what's going on outside." "Yes, father." Little Black agreed very obediently, but there was already some reluctance in his voice. Hearing this, Jade Archive Xiaohua couldn't help feeling a little sad. He looked at Little Yellow again and saw only excitement. It was likely that its heart had already been set on its way. AI. Xiaohua's heart had never ached as much as this time when he came out of the space. Sighing, Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and berated. "Wang Bianfei, come here." Master." Wang Bianfei seemed to have never seen Xiaohua so angry before. His body trembled and he anxiously said, "What's the matter, disciple? Disciple is right beside you. On the way back from home, what kind of dream did you have?" Xiaohua asked somewhat angrily. Wang Bianfei was surprised. He really admired Xiaohua to the point of prostrating himself before him. He actually knew that he had a lot of dreams. "Master." Wang Bianfei didn't dare to hide anything and honestly replied, "Disciple dreamed of a little yellow sable. This little sable could speak human language." He bragged to Disciple, saying that his mother was incomparably powerful and could split heaven and earth. "Master, if this isn't bragging, then what is? Isn't this little sable's mother the old sable? How is that possible?" Thus, Disciple told him about Master, saying that Master could kill a demonic dragon and could kill people from 1,000 miles away. Disciple also said many stories that Disciple heard from Mother. That little sable was a trash that hadn't seen the world, so Disciple said that he had nothing to say. He also said that his mother was very strict with him and wouldn't let him leave home. Disciple said that you wouldn't sneak away. "It's really boring at home. Outside is more fun." "Shut up," Xiaohua said angrily. "This old man is the mother that little sable spoke of." How is that possible?" Wang Bianfei was dumbfounded. He hurriedly knelt down and kowtowed. "Master, please forgive me, Master." Disciple didn't know. Disciple didn't know. Humph. Xiaohua was both angry and amused. He didn't know how to reprimand Wang Bianfei. Presumably, Wang Bianfei had put all those stories that his mother told him on his head. Little Huang was originally the trash that Wang Bianfei said had never seen the world. Now that he was here, he even called Xiaohua mother. How could Little Huang win against him? However, looking at Wang Bianfei, Xiaohua thought about Little Yellow. He said that Wang Bianfei's mother spoiled Wang Bianfei too much, but didn't he also spoil Little Yellow and Little Black? The two were obviously extremely powerful demonic beasts, yet he was never willing to let them out. It was also his spoiling that caused the two to have shallow knowledge. Thinking about it this way, Wang Bianfei didn't do anything wrong. If it wasn't for Wang Bianfei's dream, if it wasn't for him drawing a gorgeous world for Little Yellow, how could Little Yellow have the heart to run away from home? Wouldn't he be delaying the 2 little things? "Get up." Xiaohua waved his hand. "This can't be blamed on you. This old man put you into the Chinku and back. This old man still has 2 little things inside. It's fine if you don't know, but in the future, don't say too many impetuous and unrealistic words." Yes, disciple understands. Wang Bianfei lowered his head, not daring to say anything more. Alas, I'm afraid these exaggerated words were taught by that little monk Gun Yin. Xiao Hua sighed. After a long while, seeing that Xiao Hua's face had calmed down, Wang Bianfei whispered, Master, disciple also saw a little monk in his dream. Oh? Which little monk? Gun Yin? Xiao Hua didn't care and just answered casually. But just as he said that, his face was startled and he hurriedly said, You're not talking about Gun Yin? Is it really a little monk? Of course, there was a little monk in the space, and that was Zhang Luer. However, what puzzled Xiao Hua was that Zhang Luer didn't look like a monk. How come he became a little monk in Wang Bianfei's dream? At this point, Wang Bianfei's face also showed a puzzled expression, and he replied, Master, that little monk was said to be a little monk, but there was a very big virtual image. I'm afraid it was more than 100 feet in size. Moreover, the little monk was trekking with difficulty and didn't pay attention to disciple. No matter what disciple said to him, he would only recite Buddha's scriptures. Once the Buddha's scriptures were recited, the Buddha's virtual image would shine with Buddhist light. Countless dragons and women, as well as extremely beautiful words, looked very arrogant. Disciples simply couldn't get close. Oh right, there were many Buddha statues and people in that Buddhist light. What was this monk reciting? Hearing the golden body that was more than 100 feet in size, Xiao Hua's face lit up with joy, and he asked again. This, how would disciple remember? Wang Bianfei smiled bitterly. Is it? Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva, when walking the deep Prajnaparamita, saw that the 5 skandhas were all emptiness, passing through all suffering? Sarira, form is not different from emptiness. Emptiness is not different from form. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. Xiao Hua almost couldn't wait, and in one breath, he recited the Prajnaparamita Heart Sutra. Wang Bianfei was dumbfounded. How could he understand Buddhist scriptures? At first, he was simply confused. But when he heard form is emptiness, emptiness is form, his face lit up with joy. However, he didn't dare to say anything, fearing that Xiao Hua would be angry. He only waited for Xiao Hua to finish speaking. Then he opened his mouth and said, Master, it is precisely this. And Xiao Hua let out a long sigh. The anger in his heart seemed to lessen. After a while, Xiao Hua somewhat strangely asked, This monk has been walking all this time? Yes, Master. He has been walking all this time, without stopping. Wang Bianfei said with a smile. Disciple asked him how long he had been walking, and where he wanted to go, but he didn't answer at all. His eyes were looking straight ahead. Ai, this child, Xiao Hua sighed. Yes, as Wang Bianfei said, Zhang Luer has already been dead for more than 100 years, and he has been walking all this time. But he has been walking for more than 100 years. His heart is very tired. Master. Wang Bianfei seemed to want to ask something, but he didn't dare to, looking somewhat pitiful. -12. Chapter 35:51. However, at this time, Lu Yi at the side opened his mouth. Master, Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara, when walking the deep Prajnaparamita, saw that the 5 skandhas were all emptiness, passing through all suffering. Sarira, form is not different from emptiness. Emptiness is not different from form. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. The same goes for feelings, thoughts, actions, and consciousness. Sarira is the emptiness of all dharmas, neither created nor destroyed, neither impure nor clean, neither increasing nor decreasing. Therefore, there is no form in the air, no feelings, thoughts, actions, and consciousness, no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no color, no sound, no smell, no touch, no vision, no realm of consciousness, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, no age, no death, no suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment. Because there is no attainment. Bodhisattva, according to Prajnaparamita, there is no worry in the heart. Am I right? Yes, not bad. Xiao Hua was somewhat absent-minded and answered casually, but when he finished, he was dumbfounded again and hurriedly said, Lu Yi, you remember it clearly? Yes, Master. I remember it clearly. Louis answered in a low voice, very carefully, as if he was afraid of Xiao Hua's anger. Wang Bianfei, what about you? Xiao Hua turned his head and asked. Wang Bianfei shook his little head like a rattle drum. My head hurts when I hear this. I can't remember it at all. Ha ha ha. Xiao Hua laughed, looking at Louis's careful fear. He waved his hand and said, Louis, no need to be afraid. In my eyes, there is no distinction between Taoism and Buddhism. This Prajnaparamita Heart Sutra has already been cultivated by others. You don't have to follow in their footsteps. This old man has some Heart Sutras left behind by Buddhism. Take a look and see which one suits you. This old man will guide your Buddhism cultivation. Thank you, Master. The fear on Louis's face disappeared, and confidence appeared in his eyes again. Master, Wang Bianfei at the side said in surprise. You also know how to chant sutras? Disciple really admires you. I want to uphold justice. I want to help when I see injustice on the road. I want to kill people from 1,000 miles away. How can I not know some Buddhism? Xiao Hua rolled his eyes at Wang Bianfei and said in a bad mood. Wang Bianfei stuck out his tongue and hurriedly said with a smile, Yes, Master is right. After pondering for a moment, Xiao Hua took out a booklet and handed it to Louis. This is the text used to record the Buddhist scriptures. Take a look. Although there are some Buddhist scriptures written in the language you understand in the hidden immortal continent, they have lost their original meaning. When you understand these words, this old man will show you the Buddhist scriptures. Yes, Master. Louis took it carefully. Xiao Hua looked at Wang Bianfei and said, If your senior martial brother doesn't understand, you can give him pointers with all your heart, just like what he taught you that day. Me? Wang Bianfei was stunned and didn't understand what he meant. However, when he received the scroll, he immediately smiled and said, Senior brother, don't worry. I understand all of this. I can teach it to you right now. Thank you, junior martial brother. Louis was overjoyed. Looking at Louis and Wang Bianfei supporting each other, Xiao Hua smiled. In fact, the Buddhist sect's sutras emphasized nothing. What they pursued was to smile while picking up flowers. Xiao Hua's Buddha Sarira could also do this. However, Xiao Hua felt that letting Louis slowly comprehend the sutras by himself and let the two brothers deepen their relationship would be better than just using his finger. As the saying goes, teaching is easy, but cultivating is difficult. Isn't it exactly like this? Although Chinyu Mountain's name has the word Yu, in fact, it has nothing to do with jade. Even the pitch-black stone wall flickering with a faint phosphorescent light and black gas, even in the daytime, it gave birth to a kind of cold and eerie feeling, not to mention that it was already night. Although there was a crescent moon in the sky, the moonlight couldn't make Chinyu Mountain give birth to the color of jade no matter what. Chinyu Mountain was also not an ordinary mountain peak. It was only a special place in a mountain range. This mountain range was normal. There were trees and water. However, at Chinyu Mountain, pitch-black poisonous water seeped out from the mountain rocks. This black water was incomparably stinky and corrosive. Not to mention bones. Even ordinary stones would be turned into nothingness if thrown in. This black water that seeped out condensed into a pool at the bottom of the mountain. It was about several mu in size. Chinyu Mountain soared into the sky from this pool, separated from the mountain range by this indescribable black water. Chinyu Mountain was not only pitch black on the surface, but the mountain was even more precipitous. From the bottom of the mountain to the top, there was no mountain path at all. It was like the whole mountain was made of iron and stone. In the entire mountain, there was only a cave at the waist of the mountain that led to the outside. In front of that cave, there was a long chain bridge. Only when this several zhang long chain bridge stretched out could one walk from the chain bridge to the stone cliff opposite Chinyu Mountain. Below the chain bridge was naturally the indescribable black water. In fact, not to mention the fact that Chinyu Mountain had no mountain path. Even if there was one, no one would be able to walk from the bottom of the mountain to the top through the stinky black water. This dangerous Chinyu Mountain was the best place to imprison criminals. All of the heinous criminals in Copper Pillar Country were imprisoned in Chinyu Mountain. Because of this, Chinyu Mountain's reputation spread far and wide. Outsiders only remembered Chinyu Mountain and ignored the name of the entire mountain range. At this moment, the night was quiet. This was the case in Copper Pillar Country and even more so in the surrounding mountains. The infamous Front Jade Mountain also became more and more desolate. From time to time, the howls of evil beasts could be heard. Occasionally, there would be screams coming from within the Front Jade Mountain. Other than these sounds, there were also some strange noises. People couldn't help but think of the souls of the dead who died here. They couldn't help but feel their hair stand on end. Who would come here at night? However, just a few li away from Qianyu Mountain was a mountain forest that wasn't very tall. At this moment, the forest was very quiet. When the mountain wind blew, there were actually many black shadows crawling between the rocks. These black shadows couldn't be seen from a distance and could only be faintly seen when the faint starlight fell from the sky. Roughly counting these black shadows, there were at least a few hundred people. At the edge of the mountain forest, there was a protruding mountain rock. Behind the mountain rock, there were several people. These people's eyes were bright as they looked in this direction. Although no one said anything, the slight uneasiness in their eyes revealed the anxiety in their hearts. The wind blew gently, lifting everyone's clothes. A slightly old voice sounded, "Young Master Zhu, today is a little strange. It seems a little different from what young Master said." The voice came from a white-haired old man at the front. "Ah, Senior Dao Hong, is there something different here?" A voice sounded. This voice came from a young master beside the old man. Although it was night time, he was still wearing a brocade robe. He was the undecided scholar that Xiao Hua met at the city gate of the Bronze Pillar Country. This young master Zhu paused for a moment and explained as if he was reading a book. Qianyu Mountain is guarded by General Mo of the Bronze Pillar Country. General Mo's strength is at the 3rd grade of elemental energy. Among the generals of the Bronze Pillar Country, he is considered to be above average. Accompanying General Mo to guard Qianyu Mountain is the Mo army under his command. There are about 6,000 people, and they are all outstanding soldiers of the Bronze Pillar Country. General Mo has 6 deputy generals. Of these 6 deputy generals, 4 of them are guarding the surroundings of Qianyu Mountain. The other 2 are leading 2,000 soldiers to guard the mountain range in front of Qianyu Mountain. This is the army camp that we saw in front of us. According to the information I received, there are 4,000 soldiers guarding Qianyu Mountain. They are divided into 3 groups. Young Master Zhu still wanted to say more. The old man waved his hand and said, "Young Master Zhu, there is no need to say more. This old man already knows all of this. The information that you said is the usual arrangement. Didn't you see it? Right now, there are so many tents in the army camp. How is it the scale of 2,000 people? If it is 4,000 people, it would be more than that." Young Master Zhu was a little hesitant. He looked into the distance and said honestly, "Senior, this junior can't see it. It's fine if you can't see it." The old man named Dao Hong nodded. Tonight is a little inappropriate. In this old man's opinion, why don't we turn back tonight? We can talk about it when we have the chance in the future. Senior is right. The Bronze Pillar Country's capital has suddenly increased its security. This really caught this junior off guard, and I almost couldn't enter the city to pay my respects to Senior. Young Master Zhu was always someone who didn't have his own opinions. Once he heard the old man's words, he immediately agreed. But before young Master Zhu's words landed, an old man beside him said unhappily, "Young Master, Old Master has been captured by the king of Bronze Pillar Country for more than a year. Right now, we don't know if he is alive or dead. Our spies in Qianyu Mountain can't even see Old Master. If we wait any longer, I fear, it will be disadvantageous to Old Master." Ouch! Right at this moment, a faint scream came from several kilometers away. Young Master Zhu's body trembled, and he echoed, "That's right, Senior Dao Hong. We don't have many chances. The longer we delay, the more difficult it is to guarantee my father's safety. Why don't we barge in tonight? That Minimo General is only at the 1st tier of the 3rd grade of elemental energy, 1 grade lower than you." Dao Hong sighed and said with a grimace, "This old man only coveted young Master's golden core method. Today, I fear that I will really lose my life here. Didn't young Master say earlier? News of Bronze Pillar Country has spread like wildfire recently. Imperial Preceptor Long Chinga died in Black Cloud Ridge. Jiang Country's Chongling Princess raised her flag next to Bronze Pillar Country. How can Bronze Pillar Country not increase their security at Qinyu Mountain? It does not matter if this old man dies here, but young Master Zhu does not value your own life? This senior's words are reasonable. Young Master Zhu was out of ideas again. He said with a frown, "This is the most sensitive time for Bronze Pillar Country. If we rashly, young master, you are so smart all your life, but stupid this time." The old man beside him almost jumped up. He looked like he expected better from young Master Zhu. He suppressed his anger and said in a low voice, "It is because Bronze Pillar Country is at its most critical time that their attention will be on Black Cloud Ridge, the capital, and Jiang Country. They will not pay attention to Qinyu Mountain. Only now is the best time for us to enter Qinyu Mountain and rescue Old Master." -12. Chapter 3552. That's right. Senior Xian is right. Young Master Zhu immediately changed his mind. Now that the Bronze Pillar Nation isn't paying attention to the Qinyu Mountain, it's the most advantageous place for us. Senior Dao Hong, I felt that the increase in soldiers you mentioned was a bit strange, but now that I think about it, I'm afraid they sent more soldiers to guard the mountain because General Amo returned to the Bronze Pillar Nation, right? It should be a trick to deceive everyone. Moreover, these soldiers are no more than ants in your eyes. Why do you care? Fellow immortal Dao Hong, that Senior Xian couldn't help but say, "We'll attract the attention of the Bronze Pillar Nation soldiers." Fellow immortal, you can use your divine ability to enter the Qinyu Mountain. Fellow immortal, don't worry. The map drawn by the soldiers we bribed at the Qinyu Mountain is definitely correct. As long as you save my master, not only will we immediately give you the primeval stones you promised, we'll also give you the half of the golden core cultivation method. All right. Dao Hong thought for a moment, then clenched his teeth and said, "I'll do it now." However, what we discussed before was the arrangement of General Amo at the Qinyu Mountain. I'm afraid he's not here now. There's no need for you to attract the attention of the soldiers around the Qinyu Mountain, because this will only make them more vigilant. Why don't you all follow me into the Qinyu Mountain and see who can find Master Zhu first? Although your Zhu clan has declined, you still have the foundation of an aristocratic family. I don't think you'll care about these soldiers, right? This young Master Zhu bit his lip, not knowing how to answer. He looked at Senior Xian for help. Senior Xian glanced at Dao Hong, then at the dozens of men surrounding him, and even the hundreds of people in the distance who couldn't be seen clearly. He nodded and said, "All right, in fact, if it wasn't for the fact that General Amo might discover our whereabouts before we enter the Qinyu Mountain, we would have attacked long ago. Now that General Amo might not be at the Qinyu Mountain, we naturally have nothing to fear." "All right, we'll do as fellow immortal says. We'll do it now," Dao Hong said as he took out a yellow talisman from his small Qinkuan pouch. Young Master Zhu nodded and said, "Yes, Senior, please use your divine ability. We'll be there soon." Young Master Zhu said. Dao Hong channeled his mana and a faint light flashed. Dao Hong placed the yellow talisman on his body. As the light flashed, Dao Hong's figure gradually disappeared. After a moment, Dao Hong's voice came from a few feet away. "I'll be leaving first. You can come over as well?" Elder Xian. Young Master Zhu bit his lip. The paleness of his face could be seen clearly in the night. He looked at the elder and said, "Since we have already made an agreement with Senior Dao Hong, then we must keep our promise. Elder, please arrange for people to follow the third method we discussed earlier." Young Master. Elder Xian revealed a benevolent smile and patted young Master Zhu's shoulder. He said meaningfully, "Young Master took the risk to go to Bronze Pillar Country and met with fellow immortal Dao Hong at Star Picking Towers auction. After that, young Master took the risk to enter the capital of Bronze Pillar Country and asked fellow immortal Dao Hong to come out and help. These two great achievements were not something that could be accomplished by others. Now that we have to go deep into the Qinyu Mountain to rescue Old Master, as the one who planned this, there's no need for young Master to personally attend to everything. You can stay here to support us and at the same time provide support. If there are any abnormalities, young Master can inform us in time." Elder Xian. Young Master Zhu frowned. "Our agreement with Senior Dao Hong was, young Master, we do have an agreement with fellow Daoist Hong. But who do you think you are? Our Zhu clan's bloodline is thin to begin with. Young Master is the direct descendant of the old master. How can he take risks so easily? In particular, this formation requires a person with keen vision. Even though my Zhu clan has over 600 elites, how could they compare to Young Master's vision? Old Xian continued to smile and calmly said, if Young Master wasn't here, let alone this old servant, even fellow Daohong wouldn't feel at ease, right? This. Young Master Zhu felt that Old Master Xian's words made sense and fell silent. In addition, didn't Young Master promise to grant fellow Daoist Hong the Golden Core cultivation method? If Young Master also went to the Jade Mountain and fellow Daoist Hong rescued the Old Master, who would he ask for the cultivation method? Old Xian struck while the iron was hot and advised, therefore, for Young Master's promise, Young Master can't go personally. Oh, Elder Xian is right. Young Master Zhu nodded. Then I'll stay here and watch over Elder Xian. If I discover anything unusual, I'll immediately inform Elder Xian. Good. The safety of this old servant and the others will all depend on Young Master. How could Elder Xian not know that this departure could very well mean that they would be separated by life and death? He looked deeply at Young Master Zhu, then turned his head and said, Zhu Jian, take 2 family guards and help Young Master guard the rear. Elder Xian, the family guard called Zhu Jian said anxiously, What you want is not important. Our rear is the most important. You must help Young Master and let this old man have no worries. Elder Xian shouted angrily. Zhu Jian clenched his teeth and nodded. Yes, I understand. Let's go. Elder Xian growled and activated his true qi. Faint clouds appeared beneath his feet and carried Elder Xian's somewhat stooped figure as he slowly flew into the distant night. When Elder Xian moved, the family guards around him moved as well. The guards waved their hands and passed down the order. In a short while, hundreds of people flew into the air. Some of them even used lightness techniques and pounced toward the black monster like Qinyu Mountain in the distance. Jiayun, do you think Elder Xian and the others will be fine? Young Master Zhu was clearly worried. Seeing that the distance had already returned to peace, with only the night, the wind, and the occasional beast roar, he was truly absent-minded as he asked in a low voice. Don't worry, Young Master. Zhu Jiayun was indeed somewhat unwilling, but he suppressed the hot blood in his heart and said in a low voice, Elder Xian and Young Master have thoroughly studied Qinyu Mountain. Everyone has also discussed this large-scale invasion many times. There definitely won't be any mistakes. Moreover, Young Master has even invited a Taoist expert. Old Master will definitely be rescued. But I still feel uneasy. Young Master Zhu was on the verge of tears. There are suddenly so many tents in Qinyu Mountain. Why did they strengthen the defense? Then, that damn Taoist cultivator from Black Cloud Ridge, why didn't they wait a few more days to kill the state preceptor of the Bronze Pillar State? When Elder Xian rescues Father, he can do whatever he wants. He won't block our way like this. What could Zhu Jian say? He smiled apologetically. I heard from Qingyu that Young Master met a Taoist expert outside the Bronze Pillar State. It would be great if Young Master could chat with him more. Sigh. Young Master Zhu sighed. His eyes were somewhat lost. That person is like a dragon or phoenix among men. When he looks around, it seems like the entire world is in his control. How could I possibly be acquainted with him? Now that I think about it. Just as Young Master Zhu was reminiscing, a blood-curdling scream suddenly sounded from afar. Although it was several miles away, it traveled extremely far in this cold and silent night. Young Master Zhu didn't care at first. After all, Qinyu Mountain wouldn't be called Qinyu Mountain if it didn't hear screams. However, when he saw thousands of torches light up within several miles, and hundreds of flickering lanterns floating in the air, how could he not know that something had gone wrong? His body couldn't help but tremble. Unfortunately, before he could use the eye-clearing technique to look into the distance, the sound of immortal slaying crossbows and god-slaying bows piercing through the air could be heard. One after another, blood-curdling screams could be heard as the torches flashed. Oh no! Young Master Zhu turned pale with fright. A faint light flashed in his eyes as he looked into the distance. Senior Xian's shock was even greater than Young Master Zhu's. He floated in front of the crowd and saw that there were twice as many tents as he had imagined. One after another, they blocked the path to the front of the Jade Mountain. However, at this point, where was there any way out? He could only hold his breath and concentrate on minimizing the commotion. He also believed that the Zhu family elites he brought with him were definitely stronger than the ordinary soldiers of the Copper Pillar State. They would definitely be able to reach the front of Qin Yushan without making a sound. Of course, he didn't have much confidence in dealing with the Nightmare Mo army that was defending Qinyu Mountain. Moreover, he didn't plan to have much confidence. His people were originally Dao Hong's cover. As long as they could attract the attention of the Nightmare Mo army and allow Dao Hong to rescue his master, the death of several hundred people was nothing. Unfortunately, Elder Xian was still too optimistic. He had just carefully passed through a few alliances when there was a commotion behind him. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! A loud bugle horn sounded from the left. Then, the lit bonfires appeared one after another. From the tents, groups of soldiers wearing black armor rushed out with weapons in their hands. In just a moment, the entire camp was filled with soldiers in formation. Elder Xian almost rubbed his eyes. These soldiers seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. Moreover, these soldiers' armor was pitch black and carried a thick blood shadow. An indescribable murderous aura was emitted from the formation. Heavens! Elder Xian almost groaned. Isn't this the black armored army? How did they move from the front lines to Qinyu Mountain? Could it be Qinyu Mountain? Suddenly, Elder Xian had an ominous feeling. It was as if today was definitely not the best day to rescue his master. Elder Xian's ominous feeling was still too optimistic. After the Black Armor Army formed a formation, they didn't wave their weapons to block their path and fight with them as Old Xian had expected. Instead, they threw the spears in their hands and formed groups of several people. The person in the middle raised his hand and flashed with a faint clear light. Similarly, an immortal extermination crossbow appeared above their heads. Without waiting for Old Xian and the others to react, arrows carrying a dense immortal extermination aura whistled through the air and flew toward them. -12.